Hello there. Welcome in. Thursday edition of the Sean O'Connell Show. I have commandeered the studio. No, I am not Sean O'Connell. I am not a world champion in the fighting realm. Not even a full-time host of this program. I am Porter Larsen, of course, producing The Drive with Spence Checketts a little bit later on. And behind the glass for this show, one James Peterson. We are live on this Thursday, a busy, busy day in the sports world. The NBA trade deadline, that comes your way in 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 5 seconds from this very moment as we speak. Of course, Super Bowl 60 on the horizon as well. The Utes, the Lady Utes in action last night. And just, by the way, day one of the Olympics. Opening ceremonies technically start tomorrow, but we do have some Olympic events today. So a whole bunch to get to. We'll get to it all with you. A big thank you to our listeners who, if you want to join in and chime into the program today, head over to our Twitter page. We're asking you, what's the first Super Bowl you remember watching? You actually recall watching the game. Where were you? What game was it? Give us some memories of that on our Twitter line. It's at ESPN 700. Or just text us, 877-353-0700. The first Super Bowl you remember watching. Maybe you can give us some details. Who were you with? Where were you at? Give us a little story time. We'll share it on the show. I'm still trying to decide which one I actually remember watching. I'm one of those guys who I've gone back and watched as much Super Bowl playback as I possibly could, some of them the full games, and I'm trying to remember like the actual specific time I remember sitting down and watching a Super Bowl. It would have been around the turn of the century. I was 5-6 years old in that time frame. So we'll dial into that. We'll talk some Super Bowl, we'll talk some NBA, we'll talk some Jazz, Utes, and all of the above, Olympics as well. And hey, how about some professional bull riding in Salt Lake this weekend? Our friend Cade Madsen will stop by the program. We'll chat with him.
It's too bad that's not a Winter Olympic sport, because that would have been you would have been the official bull riding correspondent.
At the very least,
doubt, right?
At the very least. I think it might have to go Summer Olympics. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not. Unless they do it, let's have bull riding on ice.
You can do it in the arena, too. No issue there. But, Cade Madsen, a pro bull rider from right here in Utah, will stop by the program. He's coming in studio to chat with us, as is our favorite, my dog, Gordy Chiesa. Of course, Gordy will be here at noon, and he'll be with us leading right up to the NBA trade deadline at 1 p.m. Mountain Time today. So a whole bunch of Gordy, Cade Madsen, and then at 1:15 or so, we'll chat with Sean Syed of Sumer Sports. He'll give us the lowdown on Super Bowl 60, give us a little insight on what to expect. Our friend from Sumer Sports will stop by in the 1 o'clock hour, and then we'll hand it over to Spence Checketts for the drive at 2 o'clock, and I'll hop behind that glass and stick around for the afternoon. We'll start with a little Utes. On the running Utes side, in a game in which they very much could have used a win, and it's getting to a point where they need to run off a couple of wins. Utah falls to Arizona State, 71-63 at home. They are 9-13 overall, now 1-8 in Big 12 play, and the schedule doesn't get easy. That's just the case once you get into the Big 12 slate. So Alex Jensen, year one, listen, we didn't expect, we kind of knew that it was going to be somewhat tough for Alex Jensen in his inaugural year, but there is some expectations to be competitive. And last night, they weren't in the first half, but boy, were they in the second half. Actually ended up being quite a fun game down the stretch. Not quite enough after Don McHenry scored 23 points. Seydou Traore added 16, but Utah could not come away with the victory against Old Hurley and the Arizona State Sun Devils. As I mentioned, Don McHenry with 23, Seydou Traore with 16. They were the only Utah players to score in double figures. James Okonkwo had 14 rebounds. Keanu Dawes had 11 rebounds. But Terrence Brown, who is really the driver for the Utes offense throughout much of the year, had 6 points on 2 of 16 from the field. He couldn't connect from distance. 5 rebounds and 6 assists, which you like to see. He did, I think, affect the game without scoring. But on this roster in particular, without Terrence Brown putting the ball in the bucket, Utah only has a very small window in order to win a basketball game, right? There's not many routes that they can take to win a game in the Big 12 if Terrence Brown isn't putting up, frankly, 20, 25 or more points. That's the reality of this team. I think they have a collection of some decent players, but they just don't have any semblance of a unit quite yet. And a lot of their offense, when they do get things turning and they do get that engine churning, a lot of their offense is very much one-on-one centric. It is, hey, what can Terrence Brown do for us? Can Don McHenry start lighting it up from distance? It's really what they rely on. Keanu Dawes on the same token. He is a guy who gets his one-on-one with ball in hand, and Utah needs to find a way to get consistent buckets, get consistent offense going within an offensive scheme. Not just, hey, our best player, we need you to go beat your guy one-on-one and get to the rim. Defensively, they've really been porous. Last night was a little bit better, but Arizona State's not necessarily a great litmus test for that. So for Alex Jensen, I think he is as frustrated as anyone with this, and you give him the benefit of the doubt that this is year one, and it's going to take some time. It was going to take some time regardless. That being said, in this age of college basketball, and this age of college sports in general, those turnovers happen quicker than they used to. The transfer portal, NIL, all of the above, if you have things in order, you can turn a program around pretty quick. And you might be expected to turn around a program pretty quick. So we'll kind of keep that in mind as the season goes along. Again, as I mentioned, doesn't get any easier for the Utah Utes as the Big 12 slate goes along. The next one at Kansas, number 11 team in the country. That comes your way on the 7th at 12:30. And then Houston. Probably, I want to say, the best two teams in the conference. Now, Iowa State up there as well, BYU, although they have fallen off a little bit over the last week or so. You have Kansas and Houston in consecutive games and within 3 days of each other. For Alex Jensen and co., it's an opportunity to gauge yourself against legitimately two of the best teams in college basketball, but it's also not necessarily a welcome sight to see two opponents that are that good, that daunting on your schedule. I think Houston is probably the best team in the conference. Kansas, though, is probably the hottest team in the conference right now as we head into the weekend that will be for the University of Utah. Oh, and did I mention they're at Kansas? So Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, will head back to Manhattan, I believe for the first time in Fog Allen since he was a student there. So that'll be fun for Bill, I am sure. Sean Mooney, I know, was excited about seeing a game there. But for Alex and co., it's about going and being competitive. I don't think there's much expectation that they go into Manhattan and get a win in Fog Allen. That's something that very rarely happens, even with teams that are contending, teams that are competing for Big 12 championships. So for Utah, you just want to see I want to see some organizational basketball. I want to see them start to get a feel of Alex Jensen's systems, Alex Jensen's identity. Whether you win a game or not, that is something that we still just haven't seen much of. We don't know what it will look like, right? There's going to be a feel of Alex Jensen, maybe taking some things from Rick Majerus, taking some things from his time at the professional level and going forward. But what does his team identity look like? What does that bring in the form of, what type of basketball we're watching. Everyone always says we like to push the tempo, we like to run, we like to get out and get on the fast break and let our players get out in the open floor. There's always an emphasis on defense, and with Alex's teams back in the day crashing the glass. So you wonder what that really looks like once this team gets going. And I think against teams like Kansas, against Houston, it's more important to see that than it is to expect to come out of there with a W or anything like that. So Kansas, Houston on the 7th and the 10th. Those games are both going to be televised. You can see them on Fox and ESPN2. And then, of course, on your home of the Utes since 1951, ESPN 700. On the ladies' side, Gavin Peterson's squad, they're rolling a little bit right now. Another road win for them. This one way out in Orlando over UCF, 67-57. The final score there. Lonnie White with 22 points. Maddie Wilkie adds 18 for the Utes, while Reese Ross had 6, 9 rebounds, and 2 steals in the game. No bench players in double figures. It really was the starting 5 who pushed things for Utah and got things going there. It is 67-57 the final score. Utah now 16-7 overall, 7-4 in the Big 12. So when you look at the Big 12 standings and you look at what Gavin Peterson has in front of him, this is a team that could be playing some postseason basketball in the NCAA tournament. It's a conference that's going to put I think a bunch of teams in the NCAA tournament. But right now, you have a bunch of teams kind of clustered at the 6-5, barely over 500, and then Utah at 7-4 alongside Oklahoma State. And then the rest of the teams in the Big 12 that are ahead of Utah are ranked. Texas Tech at 18, West Virginia at 20, Baylor at 15, and, of course, TCU at 14. So the conference slate won't be easy, but this is a team that if they can finish strong and if they can continue on the run of play that they've had in the last week or so, Gavin Peterson and the Utes on the ladies' side could be playing some tournament basketball. We'll keep an eye on them as we always do. Next up for Utah on the schedule is Iowa State, 5 p.m. on the 7th, and then Arizona State right after that. That game is on the road, while Iowa State here in Salt Lake City. They'll like to return home after taking that trip way out to Orlando. Always impressive when you can get a win that far away from your home arena. So Gavin Peterson and the Lady Utes, good job on them last night. We'll continue to follow them as they go. NBA trade deadline. That is kind of the storyline of this market over the last 48 hours, because the Jazz, who were not expected to be buyers necessarily through the trade deadline, there was some anticipation that we'd see them make some ancillary moves, some moves to free up cap space, or maybe continue to pile up assets in the draft. What they did instead was they went out and got maybe the best available piece on the market in Jaren Jackson Jr. And, I know Giannis Antetokounmpo, there's been a lot of talk about him being traded, Ja Morant as well. It sounds like the Milwaukee Bucks are going to stand pat on Giannis up ahead of the 1 p.m. trade deadline. I would not be surprised if Memphis sends Ja Morant somewhere, but that's based on them finding a suitor as well. But, yeah, the Jazz, after not really expecting to be a buyer at the deadline, that's exactly what they have been. Jaren Jackson Jr., Vince Williams, Chris Boucher, these guys are all on the way to Utah. That last one I just mentioned just came across the line as the Jazz acquired Chris Boucher from the Celtics for probably not necessarily a whole lot. It looks like Utah is getting Denver's 2027 second-round pick and then sending salary and tax to the Celtics in order for some savings on that side. So
that's the third second-round pick they've also gotten in the last 3 days, because do you remember Lonzo Ball was a Jazz man for like 3 hours, but they got 2 second-round picks as well. So second-rounders, not anything to get too excited about, but you have to remember they did deal 2 second-rounders to get Walter Clayton Jr. to move up to get him, and who they just traded away. So they kind of recoups what they used to move up in the draft this year. That's not nothing.
And the other part of these draft picks that and a lot of people around the league have started to notice, well, teams are not necessarily holding on to 2027 draft picks. It's really seen as a draft that is much less valuable than this year's for sure. The 2026 draft is seen by a lot of experts as one of the best draft classes in the last decade or so. Whereas the 2027 picks, they're flying off the shelves. A lot of teams are perfectly content sending 2027 picks away. And yeah, like James said, Utah kind of recoups here in this Chris Boucher trade the 2 second-round picks that they sent off for Lonzo Ball, and then opening up a bunch of cap space. Now, the Jazz have also made some other moves. This one was reported originally as a separate move, but it is actually in the same one. That is Jock Landale to Atlanta for cash considerations. That was tied up in the Lonzo Ball deal.
Also,
and then
indirectly in the Jaren Jackson Jr. deal, because Jock Landale came over with Jaren Jackson Jr. So, get the tribute video ready for Jock Landale.
There you go. Yeah, Jaren Jackson Jr. comes by way of Memphis. The Jazz get L.A. in 2027, their own pick in 2027, and the Suns pick in 2031. Those head to Memphis, and in return, Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, George Niang.
Did the minivan end up playing a game for the Jazz in his return? He may have played like one or two.
Yeah, I think he saw the floor, but it wasn't anywhere near what a lot of folks were expecting. Of course, John
he was hurt. Yeah, basically all year.
John Conchar and then Vince Williams also coming to Utah. And the second one there, Vince Williams, I think is a little under talked about. He may be, as of today, the best perimeter defender on the Jazz roster. Now, he's long been talked about as just that, just a perimeter defender, just kind of a stopper you can throw out there and get some bench minutes on a guy that can guard probably the other team's best outside threat. And he's good at that. But you also saw him bring up his point totals the last couple of games. I wonder how much of that was Memphis knowing he's going to be on the trading block and trying to just keep or even up his value a little bit. That is often part of it. But with Vince Williams Jr. is at least among the best 2 or 3 perimeter defenders on the Jazz roster the second that he gets here.
I think you're probably right. He's probably the best one because they just haven't had any. Right, so and even Tony Jones in his piece for The Athletic, writing about the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, he said he labeled him as one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, which pretty good kept secret because he's been on a bad Memphis team the last couple of years. So that should get Jazz fans and Will Hardy pretty excited. The other thing, speaking of Will Hardy, you talk about how he's had a few good scoring games the last few weeks. Will Hardy has said a bunch of times over these last 3.5 years in his media availabilities, someone has to score the points.
Yep.
And everyone who's in the NBA, if they're given shots, can score 20 points. And so Vince Williams, now hopefully Will Hardy, who has shown great offensive acumen, hopefully in this system Vince Williams can give you something on the offensive side too. But it's a little deceiving. No, you got to understand he was playing for a team that's basically like the Jazz and the Grizzlies the last couple of years. And like Will Hardy says, someone's got to score the points. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's something to expect from him here.
I think that it's the hope. It's the hope that you get a guy who you can throw out there defensively really on any sort of roster against any sort of opponent. And the hope is that you can now maybe mold his offensive game to fit your system.
I think you get a plus on that side too,
Yeah, just get him a jump shot and get that developing as much as you can. And I think you have a pretty solid rotational piece in that regard. Other trades, I don't know that the Jazz will make any more. I think the Chris Boucher trade might have been the ancillary piece that we're kind of waiting for the Jazz to maybe clear up a few more spots.
He's another guy that can be a plus defender, by the way. Utah fans will probably remember him from Oregon. The Pac-12 days, he was very highly touted, had some injuries there, and he's had a nice NBA career as a bench guy, very long. That's a guy that I could see helping on the defensive end, too.
And when you are looking at what the Jazz have done, Jaren Jackson Jr., of course, added to the lineup with Lauri Markkanen, with Ace Bailey, with currently Walker Kessler Jr. or Walker Kessler. They're bringing in a lot of length. And for me, when you're talking about a league that is going kind of positionless, not a bad idea to bring in a lot of guys who can defend multiple positions, and that length, it closes the floor down against your opponents on the defensive side, and it can be a real plus when you add a lot of it together. If you were to put a starting lineup together of Jaren Jackson Jr., of Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, Ace Bailey, and then really add in whoever else you want, you'd have the tallest starting lineup in league history right there, with several guys over 7 feet. Throw Chris Boucher in there. Throw Vince Williams Jr. in there, who's a pretty rangy defender as well. It seems clear that this is the identity of what the Jazz are wanting to build towards, and I would expect roster moves in the future to include that. Now, they got to have guys with the ball in hand. Keontae George has taken an unusual step upward over the course of the last year. I know when you're looking at draft picks, you're looking at Darren Peterson, you're looking at A.J. DeBonsa. You're going to look at guys that are going to be playing on the wing and have the ball in hand type skills to add to your offensive side. And, of course, who can be plus defenders as well. So we'll get to all the Jazz stuff. Gordy Chase is going to be here for an entire hour. But how about Super Bowl 60? The Seahawks and the Patriots meet once again for all of the marbles. The big game comes your way Sunday, and couldn't be more excited for it. We asked some texters, we asked some folks on the Twitter line, your first memory of a Super Bowl, right? Not just, I think I remember watching that game, but when you sat down, you remember watching the Super Bowl, hell, maybe you remember a commercial from it. When was that? And which one was that? When you were just in your formative years of a football fan. Hey, maybe you're a new football fan, and this wasn't too long ago. For me, and this will age me a little bit in I know a lot of listeners think that this makes me too young. I think it's 2000. I think it was St. Louis in Tennessee. The 1 yard short. The 1 yard short. I believe.
Kevin Dyson.
I believe that is the first Super Bowl I specifically remember watching. Now,
is this like you remember basically the whole game, or
right,
do you bits and pieces?
I remember watching that game. I was 6 years old, right? So it was early on.
Yeah.
But that was right about the time you start getting ready to play some gremlin football, right?
Yeah.
You're in. You're now a part of this community. Whereas before that, I was a diaper wearing Cowboys fan, right? I was a legitimate child sitting there watching the game with poo in my pants, right? And
yeah, you unfortunately missed the last gory years of the Cowboys.
I was alive for them. Like I said, I was alive for them, but I was
no conscious memory.
I was eating formula and in a crib.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've gone back and watched like every Super Bowl that I can. So I have these moments where I'm like, I feel like I remember that, but I don't actually remember that, right? The first one, definitely the 2000 Super Bowl, the Titans and the St. Louis Rams. So we'll get to all of that as we go along. Cade Madsen, the PBR Bull Rider, joins us for a little PBR action. Gordy Chiesa on the NBA. Of course, Sean Syed on Super Bowl 60 and more still to come. I am Porter Larsen, hosting for Sean O'Connell on the Sean O'Connell Show. Listen live on ESPN 700, the ESPN 700 app, and your smart speakers. Of course, search Sean O'Connell Show wherever you get your podcast. First segment here brought to you by our friends at Big Willie Sports Bar. Craft food to craft cocktails, they are the Sports Bar. Check them out today, 1717 South Main Street. Hey, maybe you need a place to watch the Super Bowl? It is Big Willie's. Back on the other side with Cade Madsen, pro bull rider on Utah's number one sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back in. Sean O'Connell show today. I am filling in for OC. He's headed to Dubai for some PFL action. Of course, he's the voice of the Pro Fighters League on ESPN. How about some PFL to PBR, some pro bull riding on the station and in the market this weekend? Of course, PBR at the Delta Center, February 6th and 7th. Of course, 7:45 is when they get going. So take your date out there, do your thing over the weekend, It's a good night capper at pro bull riding. And in studio with us, big thanks to our friends at the PBR and Cade Madsen, hometown kid coming out of Honeyville, Utah, and competing in the Salt Lake City Shootout. I guess we're calling it here as the PBR descends upon Salt Lake. Cade, how's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, welcome in. Now we'll get into all the PBR stuff. We'll get into the schedule for the weekend, but let's get some of your background. A local kid, you're from Honeyville.
Yes,
Folks around Utah, I think a lot of folks know, it's in the Tremont area, small town though. So my assumption is that rodeo, ranching stuff, that kind of, you were kind of born into it before you became an athlete. Give us a little bit of your background growing up there.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm born and raised in Honeyville, Utah, and just like you said, it is a very small town. And so, ever since I was a little kid, riding horses and roping and things like that. I have siblings that, an older brother that rides bulls and stuff, and so I looked up to him and just kind of followed in his footsteps. I grew up watching the movie 8 Seconds, and so that's kind of how, he got his inspiration, and then, I got my inspiration from him. And so, yeah, rodeo's been, a big part of my life all growing up. It's pretty well the only sport that I've ever done, so.
Yeah, 8 Seconds was, even folks who aren't rodeo fans, watching the Lane Frost Tuff Hedeman story is just, it's great cinema. It's perfect for what we've got going on here at the PBR. Your background, and this is one of the reasons I love rodeo. It's not just like basketball where you're throwing a ball into a bucket and it's a game. There's a background from rodeo where it comes from guys that were breaking horses so that they could work, right? It comes from a ranching background that has roots in like real life use. Give me an idea of what it feels like to turn that type of lifestyle into making a living.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's come a long ways in the last little while. There for a while, it was just kind of like a hobby or something that you did, way of life. And now the PBR has made it so that we can, make a living at it, something that you love to do. And so for me, it's my full-time job. It's what I do. And so day in and day out, I'm in the gym working towards, strengthening myself so that my body's in tip-top shape, whether it's, riding bulls at the house in the practice pen or riding horses and roping. It's everything just to get me ready so that when, we go on the weekends that I'm ready to win, to, ride at the best of my ability.
It really has changed the last, I want to say 15, 20 years where, again, like we were talking about, it was a bunch of guys who were full-time cowboys, meaning that they worked on a ranch, they did their thing, and then maybe to make some money to supplement the ranch or to get ahead, they'd go try to last 8 seconds on a bull. Now you've got guys that are coming in. A lot of the guys from Brazil who, they're just athletes. They're full-time athletes. There's no a lot of them not even in a ranching background. So it's now kind of transitioned into a place, especially as you mentioned with the PBR, where it is the full-time gig. It's not a side gig. It's not something you're doing on the side just to get by. It's interesting to watch it transition. Now you're 20 years old, so you maybe haven't seen a whole lot of that as much. You've kind of grown up in probably a place where it is more of a full-time sport, but that's cool to get that background. I wonder. I grew up in Oakley, so right in the shadows of the Oakley rodeo, and loved watching all the guys that I grew up around, try to make their way to get into that rodeo, get into some PRCA events. You of course go full time in PBR. You do some other rough stock stuff as well, though. So how does your schedule throughout the year kind of formulate when you've got the PBR, maybe some PRCA events, maybe some events around your local community? What does that look like for you trying to fit all that in?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely enjoy all aspects of just being a cowboy, and so I try to get back and ride some broncs for some barebacks or rope when I can. But the big rocks in the bucket is the PBR, and so that's kind of where my schedule takes shape around. Is I'm making sure that I'm there on the weekends, but fortunate to the state of Utah, we have a lot of really good rodeos and fairs throughout the summer that, some of them start on a Thursday. And so I typically will try to make one on a Thursday and then fly out Friday morning to make it to the PBRs. Because, for me and my career, getting to where I'm at today came a lot from riding horses and just it being a way of life every single day. And so that's kind of where I, revert back to get me ready is, whether I'm riding bucking horses or anything like that. I try to, do it as much as I can before I go to the PBRs. So
the more you're on a big old animal getting bucked around, the more natural it feels, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever any situations before you became like a rough stock guy where maybe you didn't mean to be on a bucking horse, but it happened? Like any moments on the ranch where that was a formative moment for you where, oh, maybe I could actually do this intentionally? Or was it the mini bulls, the whole shebang from the start? Were you always trying to get on bucking animals?
Yeah, just having my older brother as an example, and seeing him ride, I've just always just kind of like went towards that and wanted to be doing whatever he was doing. In the beginning, it was something that really scared me, and to start with, it wasn't something that I could really see myself doing long term because I had to get over that fear. But as you get older, and I kind of recognized that I had was blessed with some talent and things like that, and that it was a good way to make a living, that they'll pay you if you stay on. And so, I got over that fear. So it's always, I've just been, looking to ride something that bucks ever since I was little.
It was, I want to say almost the opposite for me. I still like to ride and do the thing, but the first time that I had a horse buck on me, it wasn't good. Face forward, hit its head, and I was out cold. So I got hung up underneath the horse, broken arms, all the shebang. And after that I was like, I'm gonna let the real cowboys. I'm gonna let them do that. Now, it was kind of the opposite experience in that regard. Now, I do want to ask you. You mentioned your brother Briggs, your influences in rodeo, in maybe bull riding, but just rough stock in general. What was that look like? Maybe Briggs, but maybe outside of that too.
Yeah. So from a young age, I always loved watching the NFR and watching the bareback riding specifically. And Casey Field, he's a Utah native, world champion bareback rider, multi-time world champion bareback rider. And so I always wanted to be him from a young age. And so the bareback riding is really where I kind of got the competitive edge from, junior high school and stuff like that. But outside of that, grew up watching the PBR with my brother. And so people like Luke Snyder, who's actually, he's my coach now on the Missouri Thunder. But really, it's always been like my older brother Briggs, and then my dad, because he also rode bucking horses, because those are the people that you interact with, that were always supporting me, helping me do whatever it was to be the best. So
I love that you bring up Casey. He's now down, I think, in central Utah, but his dad Lewis is from Oakley. He's a South Summit guy, and was really good friends with my uncles, and was influence on my uncle becoming a bull rider and a rough stock guy. And so I grew up with Casey's cousins and all the fields up there, and just loved watching his career. You mentioned it, 7-time world champ, I think.
Yeah, it's up there. It's over 4 for sure.
I can't even remember. Then he came back and won another one, like just out of the blue. So Casey Field, probably the best to ever do it in that regard. But Utah has a rich history of competing cowboys, man. It's really fun to watch. You get to the NFR now. I know your goals right now are to get to the finals in May rather than December in Vegas, but every year you tune in, and the Wright brothers, you just look all over, and there's guys from Utah that are doing it. Is that, a rising tide always lifts all boats, right? But is that something that growing up in seeing that competition, do you feel like kind of drew you and drove you to just be better, seeing that, going all around the country, there's cowboys that are doing the thing, but here in Utah, seems like it's really, really competitive.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, I feel like Texas and stuff gets the reputation for having the best cowboys, and I would definitely say that there's a lot more cowboys and the cowboy lifestyle in Texas and those places. But quality over quantity for sure here in Utah. Like, most of the cowboys that come out of Utah, like they're very talented. Like, you see it throughout the years. Casey Field.
Just check the standings.
Yeah, multi-world champions that come out of Utah. And so for me, seeing that, it's definitely been, whether it was high school rodeo, there was always somebody that, was very talented that would push you to be better. And that's always good for you, having somebody to push you. So most definitely.
What are your goals when it comes to long-term? This is a sport that it can tear you up and churn you out pretty quick, right? But even if you have a 5-10 year career, what does that look like on the back end? You've already gone and competed, you've already won events, but I'm sure you're angling for a gold buckle too.
Yeah, most definitely. That is definitely something that I have in my goals is to be a world champion. Right now, we're in the midst of the PBR, the individual season right now, and so it being my first year, I'm looking to win the Rookie of the Year come May, and then hit it full force next year to win a world title. And I know, it's a young man's game for sure, and so I know I can't do this forever, and so dedicating all of my time and stuff for now to accomplish those goals, most definitely.
Give folks a little insight on the difference with PBR and just the rodeo that they'd go to on a Thursday Friday night, where you've got the team rope and you've got the calf stuff, you've got the barrel race, and with PBR it's all about bull riding, but there's also a kind of a newer aspect of it where you guys are competing as teams, you guys are competing as these organizations. It adds an interesting and I think really exciting and fun dynamic to it, especially for TV, right? You've made it like a different event. How does that kind of all come together into what you guys are putting out? Because it's the Missouri Thunder, right? Is that what you're rolling with?
Yep.
So just tell us a little bit about that, how you work as a team in such an individual sport.
Yeah, so just like you said, like the PBR, it's all bull riding. Like, don't get me wrong, I love watching all the other events, but most people I'd probably say is they're anticipating the bull riding because it's the most dangerous and it's the most action packed, and so it's all bull riding. And with the teams, it's just the same. They're 5-on-5 games. We play against another team, whoever it might be, and the wins happen individually. Like we still got to ride our bull. We're still scored. Rider 1 to 50, bull 1 to 50, possible of 100 points. And so it adds an aspect of more accountability. You know what I mean? Like going on the weekends, you get bucked off. It's just you. You know what I mean? But you're riding for somebody else too. 4 other guys on a team, and they're dependent on you to do your job so that they can feed their family. Because, like I said, this is how we make our living. And so it's really a cool aspect to be able to, be with a team and the camaraderie and things like that. Each and every person pushing each other to be better, to ultimately to win. And so it's something that it really helped me. I got to ride for 1 season before I went on my mission back in 2023 for the Missouri Thunder. And really it helped me a lot. It was, I was 18 years old, so I was young, and I felt like it helped me a lot to be able to develop into the bull rider that I am today.
Well, you're 18 years old, but you won some events. You kind of splashed onto the scene of PBR, and then everyone was like, where'd this kid go?
Yeah.
What was that experience like where now growing up in Utah, everyone kind of knows the deal with the LDS mission, but how was that for your bull riding when you're someone who, you're probably getting on the back of something every day, and then you're headed to Nashville, Tennessee, right? You're headed to a place to serve the Lord, do your thing. Were you able to even get on a bull? Were you able to ride a horse? What was that like, the 2 years where you maybe had to take a step away?
Yeah, it was very foreign for me because just like you said, like rodeo riding horses has been like an everyday, just my entire life. And so I didn't get to ride bulls, ride horses, or do anything that I had done for, my entire life up to that point. And so getting out there, like obviously I went to the gym and stuff, but I saw bucking bulls and like horses one time in those 2 years, which is like that has never happened in my entire life. And so it was an interesting experience that I'm very thankful for because when you're young, you don't really grasp the concept that this is temporary.
Right.
Like, this can all be taken away in a split second. And so getting out there and having that opportunity, it made me more thankful for the things that I have, the talents that I'm blessed with, and then coming back. I'm 2 years more mature physically, mentally. And so I feel like I just bring a different aspect to bull riding now for my career that, I understand that, everything's a blessing. It's all temporary. And so you don't take things for granted as often, I feel. So it was definitely an experience that I would do over again in a heartbeat.
How was Tennessee? Now, I know there's a lot of people out there wearing cowboy hats and boots, but there's not necessarily a whole lot of the actual Western lifestyle going on. What was that like cultural shift like?
Yeah, like agriculture is pretty big, like in the more rural parts of Tennessee, in Kentucky where I was at. But just like you said, like the Western industry, like rodeo, is like non-existent out there. It's very few and far between. And so I really enjoyed the people out there. There's people are super nice in the South. The Southern hospitality is definitely real. I would go back and visit, but I would never live there. And there's probably people that think I'm crazy for saying that, but
No, I'm with
I just
you.
love the Rocky Mountains. Like that's my home. I love the snow, all that stuff. But it was a good experience. But yeah, Western industry, it's not really there. So
It's a whole different world, man. When you go out there now, go do the thing, go check out the country music museums, go hang out and see Nashville and the rolling hills of Tennessee. But there's and we talk about being a cowboy not by choice or by profession, but just by your lifestyle, right? They don't have out there the open lands we do, the mountains, the places where guys on grazing permits, where you have this literal open range, and it's just different. It's just different. And as you mentioned, the rodeo circuits, there's several of them, right? There's PRCA, there's the Wilderness Circuit, but they're all out here. Now, maybe a few events in Houston and veering over into some of the arenas out there. I think they did an event in New York a few years back, right? And the PBR does events all over the place, even internationally. But it feels like home of rodeo is very much out here. No?
yeah, most definitely. The West Coast is not only my home, but yeah, just like you said, like the more west that you go, you see that lifestyle more and more. So it, like you said, the country music is awesome out there. It's the capital for the country music and things like that. But I'll listen to my country music while I'm here in Utah for sure.
That's fair enough. All right, zero in on the weekend. Of course, February 6th and 7th. If you guys haven't got your tickets, pbr.com. You can go there. You can also go to our website to get some more info on it. But what's the lowdown on the Salt Lake City event? Have you got your draws yet? Do you know what bowls you're going to be on? Do you know what the weekend's going to look like?
Yeah, I do have my draw. Super good bowl. We were in Sacramento, California this last weekend, and so I got to watch the bowl that I'm getting on this weekend go.
You're scouting.
Yeah, and so definitely a big opportunity to win the round the first night. We have a preseason team event this weekend. I think we're playing the Kansas City Outlaws, which they're also the other Missouri team, and so that's a little bit of a rivalry. And so really looking forward to it. I haven't had an opportunity to ride at the Delta Center yet because I went on my mission. And so there was a time on my mission a couple months back while I was still out there that I made it a goal that I wanted to be back to not just ride in Salt Lake City, but to win, especially in front of my home state crowd.
Any other Utah Cowboys this week?
Yeah, there's one other one. He's from Southern Utah, Keyshawn Whitehorse.
Okay.
But it's just us two.
All right. Well, Keyshawn and Cade, the hometown kids, of course. Cade from Honeyville and Keyshawn from down in southern Utah, competing for PBR in a preseason event here today. If you guys haven't got your tickets, it is pbr.com, SeatGeek.com, DeltaCenter.com. If you head over to our website as well, we'll get all the links. 7:45 is when they get going, so get in your seats and get ready. Plenty of time still for you to watch the Super Bowl, do your thing, and still get out to the PBR event this weekend. Kate, we appreciate you coming in. It's been good to get to know you a little bit and get to chat. And we're gonna be tuning in and we're gonna be cheering for you.
Thank you.
And paying attention as you go. We got plenty of runway in front of you. 20 years old still to do this thing. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
We're going to be back on the other side, and Gordy Chiesa is going to stop by. We're going to talk some Jazz. We're going to talk some NBA. The trade deadline less than 2 hours away. So a bunch of moves in the NBA to recap. And, of course, as I mentioned, Super Bowl 60 on the horizon this weekend. We're going to preview that, give you all of the lowdown on the Seahawks, the Patriots in a little bit of a rematch for Super Bowl 60. All of that still to come. Sean Syed of Sumer Sports will stop by to talk some football and more. Little PGA golf updates as we go along as well. Post Malone and Jelly Roll, they're coming to Rice Eccles Stadium on July 28th. Tune into the drive with Spence. That comes your way 2 to 6 today. We'll be giving away some tickets to the event there. Back on the other side with more of the Sean O'Connell Show. I am Porter Larsen filling in. James Peterson behind the glass on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back. The Drive coming up after this. This is the Sean O'Connell Show. I almost gave you the intro for The Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm used to doing the PM show. Appreciate you hopping in. Sean O'Connell wheels up to Dubai for the PFL action, and we'll have it covered for him today. Tomorrow, Bryson Jordan will be in the house, and we'll go from there. And, of course, hopefully you tune in to Sean O'Connell and Pro Fighters League action across the pond there as they go along. It should be a fun event, and of course some of the best fighters in the world, as always, on hand with 10C. We'll have Gordy Chiesa in studio for the noon hour, talking a bunch NBA trade deadline, what the Jazz had come down, what the Jazz did. I think they, in my opinion, and I think in Gordy's opinion, I think they've done some good things on the Jazz front, at least for the future of the club. It may not be a immediate impact just with where they are and with draft positioning, but we'll get to all of that with Gordy Chiesa and look at some other NBA trade deadline updates. Still rolling along. The latest on the NBA trade tracker, Knicks have acquired Jose Alvarado from the Pelicans. The Pelicans get Dalen Terry and 2 second-round picks. The Suns have acquired Cole Anthony and Amir Coffey. They're sending Nick Richards and Nigel Hayes-Davis to Milwaukee. And then the latest one for the Utah Jazz, Chris Boucher from Boston. And the Jazz will also get the 2027 second-round pick by way of the Denver Nuggets. So a lot to catch up on. We'll get to all of that. But first, how about a little PGA Tour leaderboard update? The Waste Management Phoenix Open. Maybe my favorite event in golf, just because I'm a degenerate and it's like the opposite. It's the antithesis of what is, I guess, traditional golf. Now, I grew up working on what you'll call like kind of stuffy country clubs, right? And I just love that the Waste Management Open is, number one, named after a waste management company, and they throw trash everywhere. They're having a good time. They
get trashed.
They do. They absolutely do. There's always videos of guys who should have been cut off several hours ago when it comes to their consumption of alcoholic beverages. But at the Waste Management Open, I guess they just let you go. It's fun. Now, I'm not saying that all golf should be like that. I think there's a limit to it. But the fact that they, one weekend a year, just let everyone go out and have a blast, I think is really cool. Matt Fitzpatrick.
I think it's perfect Super Bowl weekend, too, when they know they're not going to get attention. This is a way for them to get attention and not try to compete, not try to have the Masters compete with the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Right? Matt Fitzpatrick, your leader at 8 under through 14 holes on hole 1. Chris Gotterup at 7 under. Those two guys are kind of getting some distance between them and the rest of the field. Nikolai Hogard is at 5 under, as is Pearson Cootie, Michael Thorbranson, and Jake Knapp, all at 5 under. And you got a whole bunch of Americans up towards the top of the leaderboard. Tony Finau, let's see. Where's our guy Tony Finau? He is at 1 over. So Tony through 13 holes above par. Not exactly the start you want for one Tony Finau, but he's right there with Scotty Scheffler as well. I think they're playing in the same group. So maybe on the back 9, they can make some ground on the leader, who is 8 under through 14 holes. Matt Fitzpatrick getting a birdie on every other hole and then some. So a really, really good start for Fitzpatrick. He is your early leader at the Waste Management Open. PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by our friends at Uinta Golf and Uinta Golf Shops. WorldwideGolfShops.com to find your locations all up and down the Wasatch Front. They've got new TaylorMades. They've got the ping drivers. They've got custom fittings and all you need for your golf outings. And, hey, maybe you're headed down to Phoenix for the weekend. You're going to watch the Waste Management Open, but you also got some rounds to play. Stop in, get your gloves, get your clubs, get your balls at Uinta Golf. you went to golf.com. I teased it earlier. It's Gordy Chiesa joining the program on the other side. Not a better guest to have in studio on the day of the NBA trade deadline. He joins us next to recap the Jazz so far in the NBA trade deadline and look ahead to what might happen over the final hour of the trade window. Gordy joins us on the other side next. It is the Sean O'Connell Show. I am Porter Larson, and this is ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. My dog, Gordy Chiesa, back in the house. No one better on a day to talk NBA and Utah Jazz. The trade deadline, of course, coming our way about an hour from right now. Gordy, how are you?
Porter, I am doing well. Thanks for the invite as always. And this is one of my most favorite days of the year, besides James' favorite day, which I know is Valentine's Day. So this is my favorite day of the year, the trading deadline. It's rather intense. And I've been in a lot of conversations over the last 30, I've been in the NBA now for 36 years, is that there's nothing like the trading deadline where it's absolutely intense in the war rooms.
Yeah, 56 minutes away from the NBA trade deadline. Deals still coming through. James let us know The 76ers just traded Eric Gordon to the Grizzlies for a 2032 with a 2032 second round pick. That, as we just mentioned, Gordy, that's a money deal. That's moving contracts, that's moving salaries, and then trading a 2032 pick, which, let's see, that's probably someone who's maybe a freshman in high school, maybe eighth grader.
Yeah, very much.
The rights to an eighth grader.
Exactly right, eighth graders. And where the rules are, you can trade out to 7 years for a draft pick. So a lot of times you see now, so this is 2026, 7 equals either 2032 or 33. Those are the rules. 7 years out, you can legally trade a draft pick. So much is also, Porter, that it's not a question you like the guy, you like the guy's money for July 1st.
Right.
That's a huge factor. So
That's as much as the player movement during the trade deadline, moving salaries so that you can do something during free agency is just as big a part of this week as anything. Now the Jazz, a team that I kind of thought would be doing that. I thought that they'd maybe moving some ancillary pieces and opening up to have free agency flexibility. Instead, they kind of cashed in on what would have been one of their targets in free agency in Jaren Jackson Jr. And, I like that because the Jazz, we've seen time and time again, open up a bunch of room for free agency and then not be able to get like that top flight guy that they wanted, right? Whether it's talking him into living in Utah or coming and playing here or whatever it is. Going the free agency route sometimes is a little tougher for the Utah Jazz. A lot of times they've ended up on the side where they're losing their free agents rather than bringing guys in. So they say, hey, let's not deal with that. Let's go and get Jaren Jackson Jr., a guy that's under contract for a little while. And, we'll use that flexibility to get a piece that we think can be part of our future. They send Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, George Niang to Memphis, and they get in return, as I mentioned, Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, and Vince Williams Jr. Now, Conchar's, I think, more of a filler as far as the rosters go and making the salaries work. But I think that Jaren Jackson Jr. and Vince Williams, Gordy, which has been talked about a little bit, I think these are two guys that could be seen as legitimate pieces for the Jazz future. And I think they fit maybe what the Jazz are trying to do. A lot of length, a lot of defense. That's what we're seeing with the Jazz right now. And Gordy, we talked about it at the break. The Jazz defense is in need for those types of players.
Yeah, very much. So let's give a quick scouting report about Jaren Jackson. Age 27, two-time All-Star. He's a stretch big. He's a finesse range scorer. He's sure-handed in the lane. His biggest threat is pick and pop. So in a high pick and roll, just visualize right now on a dance dribble with Isaiah Collier, he sets the screen. He pops back for that quick jump shot and that quick three-point range. Now, it's interesting, Porter, his shot delivery, we call it a set shot low trajectory. So think of Tyrese Halliburton of the Pacers with that low trajectory shot. That's Jaren Jackson as far as the release point about it. Defensively, he has range. So he's in the lane. He can block shots, and he's a guy that's got good length. Now, what he needs to do is be a better rebounder. So his career, he's averaging 5.6 rebounds. So he's got to compete harder on the boards, and also he's foul prone. So he's got to get better technique, and he's got to do less body fouling. That's the things he has to improve on. But what he gives the Jazz is absolutely a tremendous scoring threat. He's a 35.1% three-point shooter. He leads his career-wise is almost 2 blocks per game, and he can score the ball and he can run the ball. He really has ball skills. So it's absolutely a home run contractually. Here's his numbers right now. I know you're driving right now on I-15. This is an NBA lexicon as far as money. This is not the real world. All right. So this year he makes $35 million. Next year he makes $49 million, 27, 28, $50.5 million, 28, 29, $52 million, and 29, 30. He makes $53.5 million, which is the player option. And that same year matches up with Larry Marketing.
Yep.
So Marketing and him will have the same time. Next guy, a little quick sky report, synopsis. Vince Williams, Jr. First thing is vastly underrated. He's age 25. He's a recipient scorer, which means in NBA jargon that he scores off movement via what? Via dribble handoffs, a fast break in transition, broken play scoring. He's really a smart cutter, and a smart cutter for him is that we call U-turn cutting, where the guy's overplaying you, you make a U-turn cut, he can score the ball as far as that. What he doesn't do right now, he's really a below average three-point shooter, only 32.3% from threes. Here's the great part about him. Absolutely defensive playmaker. So this is what the Jazz need. Jaren Jackson to block shots and to really alter shots. And this guy, what he does, he's disruptive around the ball. He for yesteryear, if you don't understand how he plays, like you just forgetful, visualize Stacey Augmon. When Stacey Augmon played in the NBA via UNLV Rebels in his heyday, he has his long, gangly arms. We call them alligator arms. And that he can play in the passing lane. He's a mindful technique. He's really good defending the ball, and he's really tremendous as far as good with screen action. He gives the Jazz what the Jazz need is a wing defender that's pride about his defense. Next guy, quickly. John Konchak is a shooting specialist off the roll. He's picking a floor spacer. He's a range marksman, and he can make three-point shots. And the last guy is Chris Boucher, who the Jazz traded for today from the Boston Celtics. He's a pick-and-pop big guy. I'll call him a stretch four. So the Jazz added two shooters in Konchak and Chris Boucher, and they added a range shooter also in Jaren Jackson, defensive player, and got an absolutely superior defensive player in Vince Williams. So in the big picture, with Austin Ainge, it was an A+ right now.
And obviously, Gordy likes what the Jazz have done. I like what the Jazz have done. Now you're building towards something probably 2027, 2028, rather than this year as you continue to angle for the draft. But something else that they've done, Gordy, is every player that the Jazz have picked up can play multiple positions. They can all defend, and they can switch on the defensive end. As a guy who, again, you coached and kind of saw a transition from a very traditional point guard, shooting guard, 4 and 5 guy, you're now seeing rosters being built upon players who are all just long, rangy defenders and can play multiple positions. How do you see the identity of the Jazz kind of shifting and evolving as they pick up these types of players?
Well, the defense will get better. That's the first thing, because it has to. The Jazz, here's the math right now. The Jazz are less than the NBA.
It needs to.
Is less than the NBA for the back-to-back years now of the most points allowed per game. And also this year, they allowed the most three-point shots per game in the NBA at 15.9. And the reason why that happens, just generally speaking, conjecturally, is that you don't defend the ball and that one of your bigs has very slow getting out to the corner to challenge the three-point shot. But it all starts, like any defense, on ball. And that's where the Jazz got to improve. A lot of it's technique. Most of it's what? Effort. Yep. And that's where the Jazz can improve on. All right, here's the starting lineup. That could be, let's forecast out next year. At point guard, Keontae George. At two guard, Ace Bailey as a big two right now. At small forward / hybrid, Larry Marketing. At power forward / stretch, Jaren Jackson. And at center should be Walker Kessler. So that could be. Now, what about Walker Kessler as far as you're a Jazz fan? All right, he's hurt, and he's good, and he's homegrown. And that this year only played 5 games this year before the left shoulder surgery with a torn labrum. Thank God it wasn't a shooting hand. It's on his left shoulder. All right, so he's a restricted free agent. So, Porter, what did they do? Hey, we love you, dog, because he's homegrown. We drafted you the day of the draft via Minnesota Timberwolves. And so, again, what's he worth to the Jazz? And in range, we always talk about this, Porter, you and I, about the contract of, ironically, of Utah, former Utes, Jakob Poeltl, who plays for the Toronto Raptors. His contract, we'll just make it simple, he averages $28 million for the next 4 years. Yep. And so the question is always, internally, is Walker Kessler better for the Jazz than Jakob Poeltl for the Raptors? And the answer is unequivocally yes. So now it's my time to get a tremendous payday. And so now it gets interesting. And so, Porter, it's beautiful right now outside here in beautiful February, Salt Lake City, which is unquestionably should be cold right now, but it's warm. But July 1st, Porter, in the war room, it's going to be hot in there.
Yeah.
You have to decide what they do with Walker Kessler as far as being a restricted free agent.
A restricted free agent. And we've talked about this. You mentioned Jakob Poeltl. The thing with the Jazz is you've now brought in a Jaren Jackson Jr. who can play the 5. You have a Yusuf Nurkic who I think is a very good candidate for the mid-level exception. The benchmark, as you mentioned, at $28 million a year, to me, I like Jakob Poeltl and I like Walker Kessler, but I think, and we talked about this a little at the break, I think the Raptors set that benchmark a little high. Now I know the salary cap's going to continue to go up. These numbers to me are, I don't live in that space, so $28 million is always going to seem high to me. But just based on the amount that it takes up against the cap, that's going to be $19 or $20 million hard cap for the towards the hard cap for the Jazz, and I think that is a tough ask. I think if Walker Kessler and his camp want to stay, there may be a desire from the Jazz to come down from that number a little bit, and that's seemingly where there's some tension brewing.
Blasphemy, my good man. I can't believe you saying that. Blasphemy. I'm only kidding you. And the reason why is that you're forgetful how players think in their agents that Walker Kessler does have somewhat leverage.
Yep.
Somewhat, not total. Because now Jaren Jackson here, it changes part of the equation. You mentioned also about Yusuf Nurkic, who's played very well for the Jazz. Mid-level exception next season should be roughly $50 million. He's making 19.1 right now, so he's going to get a pay cut if the Jazz do re-sign him. But he might add some more years to his career at 31. When's the last time you heard really an NBA player take a pay cut dramatically?
It doesn't happen.
It happens very, very unusually at a low ratio.
It usually is the most common time I hear about a player taking a pay cut is when they have already kind of played out their career. They're a star who has $1 bazillion in the bank, and they want to go play with a friend or something, right? Or they want to go play with a specific team. Outside of that, agents are really good at getting market value for their players.
That's their job. All right, so the last time I've heard of a really great player taking a pay cut was Dirk Nowitzki.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to be traded from the Dallas Mavericks, and so he took a pay cut to make $5 million a year from making roughly like $35 million. And he did that because he didn't want to move. And at that time, Mark Cuban was the sole owner of the Dallas Mavericks. And it worked out for both parties. And it's very rare. So I mentioned about Dirk Nowitzki. Most players get traded. It's the most amazing phenomenon. And here's what happens. I'll use his illustration because it involves Jaren Jackson. I thought about this the other day. All right. The only player in the 2018 draft, so these players are in their prime right now, roughly they're 27, 28. The only player in the 2028 draft to remain on their own original drafted team is only one guy. So 59 players in the 2018 draft of the original team is now on different teams. So, do you know the expression that is always moving parts? Every day something's moving along the way, whether it's your own personal life or professional life, it's always moving. This is the ultimate. So 60 guys drafted in 2018, only one guy is left. And here's the only one guy left. He was the 36th pick of the draft by the Knickerbockers, Mitchell Robinson. So here's the guys. I'll just give you, not all 60, no way. I'll just give you the top 11 in the draft. Number 1, DeAndre Ayton. Number 2, Marvin Bagley. Number 3, Luka Doncic. Number 4 now. See, Jaren Jackson was the second least guy to remain on the team. Now he's with the Jazz. Number 5, Trae Young. Number 6, Mo Bamba. Number 7, Wendell Carter Jr. Number 8, former Jazzman Colin Sexton. Number 9, Kevin Knox. Number 10, Mikal Bridges. And number 11, this guy's the MVP of the NBA last season. He might be this year, either him and Nikola Jokic. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was drafted by the LA Clippers and was traded, thank God, in the Thunder world to the Thunder. So, being traded is perfectly normal in the NBA. The last two stalwarts that might never be traded possibly would be Steph Curry and Nikola Jokic. Probably. See that
right.
word? I'm hesitating.
Not so fast.
Yeah, not
You
so
never
fast.
know.
Porter, one time Larry Miller said to late great Larry Miller said to the Jazz around a long time ago, he said to us these magical words. Hey guys, meaning myself, Jerry Sloan, Phil Johnson, and Kevin O'Connor, I will never trade John Stockton or Karl Malone. So we're going to ride their career out, and then we're going to rebuild. I will never trade these guys. So once he said to it at that meeting, then it was never, ever discussed, ever. John played till age 41. Karl played till age 39, went for the Lakers for one season. Then he retired. The Jazz regrouped 3 years later, and by 2007, with Darren Williams, Boozer, and Okoro, got back to the conference finals.
You mentioned that 2018 draft and how trades are movement's always happening, right? Just think about this for a moment. You remember all the noise about the Mavericks and trading up for Luka, Trae Young,
yes.
and all of that. Well, just a little revisit of that situation. The Dallas Mavericks traded essentially Trae Young for Luka in that trade, the third pick for the 5th pick. And then they traded Luka to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. And then they just traded Anthony Davis to Washington for Marvin Bagley, who was the 2nd pick in that draft. They essentially, it took them 6 years, but they essentially traded the 3rd pick for the 2nd pick in the NBA draft. Just a very full circle moment there.
Absolutely. That's an understatement. The full circle of NBA life. That's exactly right. That's why it's so important to get the majority of your draft picks correct and then develop them. And now they play for your franchise and your team is successful. Then you have to give them fair compensation. And then later on in their career, they're all trying to chase a championship title. And then you have to reassess then, what do you need to try to get that exclusive title, which we know is very, very hard to do. Full circle. And that's the beauty of the NBA. And you think you know something, you know nothing, because it's called human behavior. And that so much is the fit, Porter. So a lot of times players, you love their talent, but it's not the right fit for them. So you take the guy for all the wrong reasons based on only talent, and it doesn't fit in. And then you try to move that guy often out of non-strength versus out of what? Strength.
I want to go back to, you mentioned what could be the starting lineup for the Utah Jazz. Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, those guys are both over 7 feet tall. Jaren Jackson Jr. is 6'11". Ace Bailey, 6'8", 6'9". And then you think probably Keontae George.
Oh, absolutely.
You also may have a lottery pick in the next year's draft, so you could add something in there. But the front court and the very tall Ace Bailey at the 2, that would be the tallest starting lineup in league history. And it's all a bunch of guys that are kind of interchangeable. I don't want to say positionless basketball because it's a kind of a vague term. But to me, I'm all in on that type of roster where you can build out a bunch of length, which on the defensive side of the ball, Gordy, cuts everything down. It makes the court smaller for the other team. And on the offensive side, if they can all shoot, it spaces the floor for your team. That's just on its face a roster that I can get on board with. The one question, however, is with a Walker Kessler. Now, interestingly enough for the Jazz, I think that some of the leverage that we talked about, Gordy, was that the Jazz have a historically bad defense right now. Well, they just brought in a former defensive player of the year who can play the 5. does that add any pressure, any leverage taken away maybe from Walker Kessler's camp in that regard?
Yes.
Bringing in a Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Very much. Absolutely. Hey, we love you. We love you at a certain number. And now the discussion is not at – it's a discussion now between the Jazz and Walker's representation. It's you want it to work out, but now there's an element of leverage, whether it's talked out loud or whether it's perceived leverage. By having Jaren Jackson Jr. here, it helps the Jazz as far as trying to get a reasonable number. As always, once you understand the economics of it, you don't want to overpay dramatically. That's a catchword now, dramatically, on a player. Unless you're really close to being a champion, then everything changes then. But the Jazz still in that, they're heading forward, certainly, by making these trades. But they're not really in a championship level yet. Hopefully in the next few years they will be. But let's first make the playoffs if you're a Jazz point of view. Next part of that is that Isaiah Collier is a big part of this group right now, the way he plays. So a lot of times you can slide over Keontae George at 2 guard, which he's really effective at. So I'll call Keontae, he's really a guard, and he's good at it. He does pass the ball. He averages like 6.8 assists per game this season, but he's really a good scorer. That's what he does best, is score the ball. And Collier, that guy's pass happy, and he's also underrated. And so now Ace Bailey is a major young talent. That guy is good. And I love about Ace Bailey is that he's really an efficient shooter.
Yeah.
Like remember, he's only 20 years old. So he's shooting the ball really relatively efficiently, like 46.5% from the field, which is really good. Now, he's got to get better defensively, and that's what technique. That's understanding your body, moving your feet, play the angles, use your hands. See, so much in any sport, you have to be able to coordinate your feet with your hands, become a defensive player, and that's all the Jazz across right now. But I do think the Jazz are pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Ace Bailey, pretty efficient shooter, 45% from the field, 35% from downtown, 71% from the free throw line. He's going to up those numbers a little bit, as you'd expect. It's the defensive side of the ball with him. If he can join the cohorts on the Utah Jazz and Jaren Jackson Jr. and others in playing, I think, a little more intensity on the defensive end would help one Ace Bailey. Now, one more breaking news update for you. The Los Angeles Clippers trading Ivica Zubac to the Pacers. They're sending Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, and 2 first-round picks, 1 second-round pick to the Clippers for Zubac, and Kobe Brown as well. That's kind of a salary filler. That's a pretty big haul for one of the only traditional centers right now in the NBA. What do you feel about Indiana sending that type of haul for Zubac?
Okay, it's surprising because Zubac, first, he's got a great friendly contract. So it's the most amazing thing. So we talked about Walker Kessler and Jakob Poeltl making $28 million a year. Here's Zubac's contract. This year, $18.1 million. Next year, $19.5. Porter, $27.28, $20.9.
Yeah.
So the contract is absolutely in NBA as far as arithmetic is tame. Now the Pacers, those guys. Let's not forget. See, the Pacers, this is a classic example where no one ever talks about them. Oh, by the way, last year, they were 1/2 away being NBA champions without Halliburton going down. And they moved on from Miles Turner because they knew something that we didn't know, Porter. Guess what? Is that they like his talent, but they saw the things what he couldn't do right in front and center of them. Also, a lot of times you see players at their worst, Porter, at 3 o'clock in the morning on a 5-game losing streak. You see a guy in the airplane above sea level, 35,000 feet, and guess what? Doesn't really care about winning. All right, so they moved him on. And so now they get Zubac as a big guy to play with Halliburton next season, and they moved on to the Clippers. Now, the Clippers' point of view, I'm surprised they would do that. So they have a leap of faith right now, the Clippers, that they think, the Clippers now, they think that they can get away with Brook Lopez this year as a backup center to now play former Jazzman John Collins at center, somewhat at center, And then the biggest thing right now is the rookie guy from Penn State, Niedenhauser, who was picked number 30 by them last season. They think that his upside is much more greater than Zubats, and they think that they can piecemeal it this season right now. So the Clippers added Darius Garland. They made that great trade for James Harden for Darius Garland. They gained 10 years on that. They gained 10 years on that, but there's a risk involved right now. The Clippers are the oldest team in the NBA. Oldest. And the Warriors are second oldest.
Let's zero in on some of the non-Jazz trades as we get to the other side. Gordy Chiesa in studio with us, a longtime Utah Jazz coach, and of course with us here on ESPN 792.1 for a. How long have you been doing this radio thing? Just since you hung it up?
Yeah, did it for the last 8 years.
Okay, 8 years, going on a decade or so, doing some radio stuff. Always appreciate Gordy's time. It is the Sean O'Connell Show on a Thursday. I am Porter Larsen filling in. James Peterson behind the glass. We'll be back with more Gordy on the other side, NFL in the 1 p.m. hour, and we'll go from there on a Thursday. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, your home of the Utes and more. It is Utah's #1 sports talk, proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. I am Porter Larsen, filling in for OC today. You've got Bryce and Bianucci filling in for OC tomorrow. And then, of course, The Drive with Spence Checketts comes your way each and every afternoon. I will be along for the ride on that show. We've got Gordy Chiesa in studio with us right now, talking some Jazz and some NBA. We went through the Jazz trades so far, what they added, what they lost, where that leaves them in contract talks going into July with one Walker Kessler. Now we'll go around the NBA a little bit as more trades are developing. And Gordy, we're gonna rewind a little bit, go back to February 3rd. The Chicago Bulls, they brought in Mike Conley, Jaden Ivey, sending out Kevin Huerter, Dario Saric, and a 2026 first-round protected pick from the Timberwolves. Now, that one intrigues me because, number one, Mike Conley, a guy that we're very familiar with here, but it's also one of the only picks traded this year so far that is in 2026. The league is telling us, without telling us out loud, that they value 2026 picks a whole lot more than they do 2027, 2028. And I think that that's obvious to tell why. But I wonder, from your experience, your perspective, and maybe just looking at some of the prospects, why teams are so willing to move off of these 2027 picks.
The reason why, because this year should be a really tremendous draft. So most teams want to stay in the draft, and if they don't, they like to trade into it. And so they'll trade future out to try to be in this year's draft. And the Bulls are an interesting team because they've been stuck in the middle right now of the playing tournament for the last few years. And so right now they're 24 and 27. And you mentioned for Mike Conley. Mike Conley, former Jazz man, he's 38 years young, and he got traded twice already. So Porter, he got traded from Minnesota to Chicago, and Chicago traded him this morning to the Hornets. So right. Mike Conley's on the Hornets right now, and I read an article that he might go back to the T-Wolves. They might just let him go as far as a buyout. He gets back to the original team, the T-Wolves. So if you're a Bulls fan, here's what the Bulls did right now. They added Dario Saric. They added Jaden Ivey, who's very good from the Pistons, who will give them a good boost. They added also Anthony Simons from the Celtics, who's a good player, who could be the sixth man of the year. Leonard Miller. They also added from the T-Wolves. They added also Rob Dillingham from the T-Wolves. Then they added Colin Sexton, former Jazz man from the Charlotte Hornets, and Ousmane Dieng from the Thunder. So they're really active because, from the Bulls' point of view, enough of this just being in the middle of it. They're going to try to go all in to attempt to get into the top six to make the playoffs, to show their fan base and ownership level that they can get better right now. So that's an interesting thing. The Cavaliers, okay, these guys, the Cavaliers, they added at the trading deadline Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis from the Sacramento Kings. And Keon Ellis is very good. He's a defensive player that can guard the ball, and also he's I call him a utility player where he can play both 1, 2, and 3 because of his size. He's a very better version of former Ute standout DeLon Wright. That's who he plays like. And they also added, obviously the biggest one was James Harden. So the question now for the Cavaliers, who won 60 games last year but had back-to-back years, they got knocked out in the playoffs really early. Last year in the playoffs, they beat the Heat 4-0 and lost to the Pacers 4-1. So now James Harden is there. So now James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen, and Keon Ellis, and Dennis Schroeder, and former Utah State Aggie Sam Merrill. Can those guys get deeper in the playoffs philosophically? So here's the Porter. Here's the question, you and James. Do you think that James Harden and Donovan Mitchell can coexist with the ball, where both guys are ball dominant.
That was what I was about to ask you. Not only is there enough basketballs in Cleveland to support both of those guys, is there enough air in the basketballs to keep it while they dribble the air out of the ball? I don't know, Gordy. That's a tall ask for both James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, because each of those guys is going to have to adjust their game a little bit to fit the other guy in.
Very much. So that's the question. Hey, we love each other. That he's my cuz, and so we're going to make it work right now. And no one knows the answer until the Cavs. You're not judged regular season. You're judged by the playoffs. Whether you minimum, for the Cavs' point of view, is that minimum you get to the conference finals. And by the Cavs are the highest paid payroll in the NBA. However, they shed basically $90 million off their tax penalty moving guys around. Now, James Harden, we know is under contract. He's going to opt out, and probably he hopes to sign a new 2-year deal on July 1st for roughly $40 million a year times 2 equals $80 million. And James Harden right now, he gets that contract, he'll be 39 years old. So there's a risk involved for the Cavaliers. But another part of that, as far as Palace intrigue, oh, by the way, Donovan Mitchell's up for the extension, Supermax, July 1st. So the Cavs, they're all in as we speak right now to try to get and beat out their competition, which right now is the Pistons, the Kings, the Knicks, the Celtics. They're all ahead of them right now. So who knows the answer? We're going to find out, Porter, roughly sometime in May.
James, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden. Are there enough basketballs not only in Cleveland but in the entire state of Ohio for those two guys to run an offense?
Yeah, listen. James Harden is going to fool people the second half of the season. I'm not. There's no doubt about it. He always makes himself and his team look really good in the regular season, particularly post trade, right? And we're very familiar with James Harden post trade at this point. This is his 4th team in the last 6 years. So I think we're gonna go into the playoffs going, yeah, this might just work, but then we're gonna get into the playoffs. He's gonna disappoint again, and
he's got 19
let's be
minutes
honest,
still
Donovan
to request
Mitchell
another trade too.
Might disappoint some again in the playoffs, although he typically plays well individually. But I don't know. I think this is a recipe for disaster for Cleveland. Far be it for me to disparage another James's name, though.
Right.
James Harden.
Oh, you're going to James. Oh, I like that. James. And by the way, James Peterson, Cleveland is the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
This is true.
Yeah, so I want to make that point about it, that here, Porter and I, way beyond just talking about the NBA right now. I want to make that point. Speaking of making a point.
I do want to ask, though, before we move on.
Okay.
It's not just the ball dominance of those two players. What about the defensive side?
Very much.
I mean, Donovan has some good defensive traits and skills, but he just hasn't ever been I would say, a plus defender. And then with Harden, he's an interesting one. He's led the league in steals before, but a lot of times he's getting those steals on, like, behind the back. Oh, I got beat. I'm going to tap the ball out. He's good at getting into passing lanes, but as a one-on-one defender, he plays what I like to call Olay defense, right? Where you're trying to not necessarily stay in front of a guy, Gordy, but you're trying to funnel him into the good defender behind you, right? The Jazz saw a bunch of this with Rudy Gobert where, yeah, your player may not have scored because Rudy Gobert was your backup, but you allowed him to get into the lane and break down the defense and then kick it out to the corner. That's something that James Harden is, I don't want to say really good at because it's not a good trait in my opinion. He does it a lot, though, where you just see him kind of open up, let a guy penetrate, and then hope that there's a good defender behind him. For James Harden, luckily there's usually been a good defender behind him, a Clint Capella, a Zubats, now a Jarrett Allen. But, man, that can only work so often when you're playing, like I said, I like to call it Olay defense.
Yeah, very much. So in the playoffs, you get exposed, your lack of defense. And there's a risk involved, certainly, but the Cavs are willing to do that as far as they're going to try to have a high-octane offense where they're going to try to outscore people, and we'll find out if that's also is going to happen as far as in the playoffs. All right, Lakers. There's so many Laker fans living here in Salt Lake City from SoCal.
So many.
All right, so, yeah, it's almost like when the Jazz play the Lakers, unfortunately, that there's so many Laker fans that are coming here. All right, Lakers, Austin Reeves. That guy is very good. He's up for the extension. They're going to give it to him. So the Lakers, it again sounds weird saying it, but they hung in there so far. They're 30-19, and that they're right now they're the 6th seed. They get Austin Reeves back. It's going to help. But they also added today Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard is a knockdown shooter, roughly 42.5% career from the field. He's a southpaw. And so when they double-team Luka on perimeter or double-team LeBron James in the mid-block or also on perimeter, and Luke Kennard's in the game, they're both going to be swing for a corner three-point shot. So they most times when LeBron's teams, when they're not as successful, despite him playing great most of the time, is that their lack of shooting from his floor mates on perimeter. By adding him right now, Luke Kennard will help them very much. And so that was really underrated. The trade was Gabe Vincent, who overachieved with the Heat. He struggled right now with the Lakers. He moves on, and they add Luke Kennard. So that's a smart move by them.
Another deal I wanted to ask you about was the Oklahoma Thunder picking up Jared McCain from Philadelphia. The Sixers get a first-round pick via the Rockets. That's going to be some kind of a middle ground pick, and then 3 second-round picks. So 4 draft picks for one Jared McCain, who he's been injured a little bit, but man, he was really good last year. And I think the thing that stands out to me is his fit with the OKC roster, a team that just won an NBA title already. I really like what Sam Presti's doing, and I really like this deal for OKC. What say you?
Very much. So Jared McCain is a guy that played for the 76ers, and his rookie season, he was absolutely sensational. Then he got hurt, and now what happened with the 76ers, B.J. Edgecombe, a rookie, has played very well for them. And Therese Maxey is one of the top 10 players in the NBA.
Yep.
So it's almost like a logjam of all these guys. One's in his prime, one's a young fella, going to be in prime someday. So McCain was the odd guy out. The Thunder absolutely added him, and so he's going to help them. See, there's a guy, Nikola Topic, that last year was picked from Serbia by the Thunder at the 12th pick. He had surgery this year, adamant surgery. Hasn't played the whole year. So just in case that it doesn't work out for him, they backlogged that with Jared McCain, who is a scorer, defensive player, and knows how to play the game. And so now with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Cason Wallace, who also, see again, is all part of it, Porter, they've got to pay him eventually someday. So just say they don't pay Cason Wallace. Then Jared McCain then is really the heir apparent to be the backup guard, because Shai can play also off the ball, to say the least. So again, I call it the domino theory as far as we trade for guys. Just in case someone we can't re-sign, we think we can, maybe they can't for other reasons, then they have the guy to play there. It's really a smart play. Also, they added Mason Plumlee. Now, I know Mason Plumlee starts fouling on layup lines. I get it, during games. I understand that. And I know that also that he has a weird foul shot where he's right-handed, but now he shoots his foul shot left-handed because he's so bad right-handed. All right. But what he does do, it gets another big man. But they moved on from Ousmane Dieng, so now they have Hartenstein, they have Chet Holmgren, and they have Mason Plumlee for the rest of the season to be a physical presence, to play inside, to play against the Rockets' big guys, and also to play against Nikola Jokic,
right,
and to play against Wembanyama. So again, he added a big guy just to put a body, put his numbers on numbers to try to slow those other big guys down of their arch rivals.
And that's obviously a big piece of this, is trying to build your roster, not just the style of hoops that you want to play, but also to combat the types of players that are dominating in today's age. All right, Gordy, we're going to take a break. On the final segment, we're going to recap the trades of the day, and we're going to take it right up to the NBA trade deadline, and we'll get Gordy's list of the day as well. All that's still to come on the Sean O'Connell Show. I am Porter Larsen. James Peterson taking us through it behind the glass, keeping us on the rails. The Drive with Spence Checketts comes your way about 2 p.m., and by then we'll have the NBA trade deadline all wrapped up and put a bow on for the 2026 season. We'll preview Super Bowl 60 and maybe revisit some Ute storylines in the 1 o'clock hour as well, right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back in the Sean O'Connell Show. Just about to go into the final hour of the OC show. I am Porter Larsen, filling in while OC heads to Dubai for some fight action. Of course, calling things for the Pro Fighters League on ESPN. Tune in this weekend as OC does his thing. It's list time with our guy Gordy Chiesa. We'll get Gordy's list of the day, and then in about 6 minutes, we will have the trade deadline in the NBA with a bow on it. So, Gordy, it's an assist list on this Thursday afternoon. Give us the lowdown. What, the Jazz career assists? Is that what I hear?
Very much, yeah. Today's list, Porter, Utah Jazz franchise leaders in total career assists.
Should we guess some of these? Number one.
In a Jazz uniform.
Number one, of course, will be John.
Very much.
I'm going to guess just a few that might appear. Darren Williams. He'll be on there. Carlos Arroyo.
You're a sick man. I worry about you, your mental health.
Is Derek Fisher on there?
I worry about you and James Peterson.
He wasn't there long enough.
I worry about you guys.
I might.
Ricky Rubio.
I worry about you guys. Career assist. I'll give it to you right now. For first thing, what's an assist? This question is asked me often over the years. What's an assist? An assist is a pass from one player to a teammate that directly leads to a floormate's made basket. Yes, it's possible to take one dribble that leads to a direct basket. Yes, it is. All right, here's my list today. Number 10, Adrian Dantley, 1,702 career assists. Number 9, Gordon Hayward, 1,762. Number 8, Pete Maravich, 1,844.
Of course.
Number 7, Jeff Hornacek, 1,895. Number 6, the Jazz Russian Comet, Andrei Karolinko, 1,919.
Carl's got to be on this list just out of sheer time. I'll throw that in there, but I'm not positive.
Number 5, he was the jumbo dime deliverer. He's the best ever lefty passer in Jazz history. Think about it. Jumbo passer. I'll give you another hint. We call him all the time, James and I, an Aussie with a swag.
Joe
Ingles with 2,213 career dimes. Number 4, Darren Williams, 4,003. Number 3, his nickname was the fastest of the fast. Ricky Green.
There we go.
4,159. Number 2, he's also the third leading scorer in the history of NBA basketball. Karl Malone. Karl delivered 5,085 assists.
Wow.
And number 1, John Stockton, the highest total in NBA history accumulated during a brilliant 19-year-old career. John assisted on 15,806 assists, which comes to 10.5 assists per game. Quickly, present Jazz notes, Keontae George has 1,021 career assists only in his third season. So he's going to keep climbing this list. And let's give a shout-out. He's playing tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, Isaiah Collier. Only his second season. He's averaged for his career 6.6 assists per game, which comes to 749 assists. And last game against the Pacers, Isaiah Collier had 22 sweet-looking dimes.
And you mentioned Keontae's already over 1,000?
Keontae right now is 1,021.
So he's already in the top 20.
Yeah, very much, yeah. Only his third season. So, again, the Jazz, we talk about who they traded for today, 2 days ago, I should say, all the guys they had. But the guys right now, both Isaiah Collier and Keontae George, those guys are pass happy. So as the Jazz go forward, see the Jazz right now in tonight's game, let's not forget, they play tonight in Atlanta. Tonight's game's, Porter, number 1 assist is the team, the Atlanta Hawks. Number 2 is the Jazz. So the two passing teams in the NBA are playing tonight in Atlanta, Georgia.
The one that stands out there, and I mentioned it, Karl Malone being number 2 on the Jazz all-time assist list is probably surprising to a lot of folks. But when you think of the time he spent in a Jazz uniform, and then, Gordy, if you think back, that guy, when he got the ball on the block, a lot of times saw double teams. A lot of times saw at least a guy stepping down from the top of the key and swiping at that ball. And he was pretty good at getting rid of it. Now, sometimes he just take on the double team and go score. That's kind of Carl's thing. But he was pretty good at passing out of the block. 5,000 plus assists for a guy that high on the all-time scoring list is quietly impressive.
Oh, very much, yeah. You described there, that's the Jazz cutting series where Carl get the ball in the mid-block. The first thing is always when you get the ball, you always look middle because check the dots. See, the dots on the floor, so your mid-post player.
Brian Russell, right there.
You got that right. So to add to this, so with assisting, I always kid Brian Russell, I always kidded Andre Karolinko. The 5 greatest cutters of all time in Jazz basketball are, in any order, Karolinko.
Another list?
No, it is a mini list. No, just part of the segue.
Unofficial list.
Yeah, Karolinko 1, Harpering 2, Brian Russell 3, Shandon Anderson 4, and 5. Hopefully on the Jazz list right now, somebody 5 playing for the Jazz right now. So picture Karolinko in that dive cut. Yep. Brian Russell, Matt Harpering, Shandon Anderson, and number 5. Let's hope it's Ace Bailey someday.
Would be great.
Him coming at 6'9", dashing down the lane for that give and go cut.
Another reason that we like that Vince Williams pickup quietly, because he's a really good cutter. He's good at moving without the ball, moving backside. A lot of times it's just guys with high basketball IQ that can do that. All right, Gordy, it is official. The NBA trade deadline has come and passed. The Bucks are keeping Giannis Antetokounmpo. And, of course, the last big trade that we saw, Ivica Zubac to the Pacers for Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. The one we didn't quite get to, really, which was a decent-sized trade, Jonathan Kuminga to the Hawks for Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick. The Hawks get, again, Kuminga and Buddy Hield, and then the Raptors get a big man in Trace Jackson Davis. I don't know. Kristaps Porzingis 5 years ago, that would have been a big move, but it doesn't. I just don't know how much he does for the Warriors. What do you feel like with a guy with that unique of a skill set being added alongside Steph and co?
Well, the first thing is that his contract's up.
Yep.
He makes $30.6 million this year, so it's
almost just
like
a rental.
You got that right for one season. And for the Warriors' point of view, there's no future. It's like right now, and so they didn't give up. Which they're glad they still have Brzezinski, who's very good, and Moses Moody, who's very good young player. So they added Porzingis to help Al Horford, who's 39 years young. All right, Porzingis, he's a shot blocker. He's light of weight, but he can stretch the floor. And so the risk involved right now is that you can't re-sign him. But they had to do it because Jimmy Butler's out for the season, and they don't want to waste another Steph Curry's brilliance as far as him, one, not making the playoffs, and if they do make the playoffs, trying to get past minimum into the second round. So it makes sense for where they are right now. He gives them a shot blocker, a three-point shooting threat. He helps Al Horford as far as in the lane. They're almost like a play in harmony right now. And in Draymond Green, you could play Al Horford at stretch 4 and play Porzingis at 5 if Draymond gets in foul trouble or he starts wigging out in games.
All right, Gordy, what do you want to see from the Jazz over the next few weeks where you may get some of these trade pieces, you may see them on the floor, but you still understand that there's an onus on the Jazz to position themselves for the draft. It's hard because you want to see some of the fruits of the returns of the trade deadline, but you may just get more angling for NBA draft in 2026. What do you want to see from some of the individual players that came this way?
Well, one, just improve defensively as far as the whole group right now, and those new players get used to the Jazz system. So help them learn the terminology as far as what offensively and defensive schemes and add to the group. But if I'm the Jazz right now, I'm going to try everything possible to protect that 8th pick or lower.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to risk it right now.
You can't.
So if you had to sit some people, quote, rest, I would do that because in a big picture right now, Jazz got better right now. They hit some home runs at the deadline, the trade deadline, but don't give up the future right now because the future right now is still evolving.
We like what they did at the deadline, but at the same time, everything you did at the deadline is angled towards also having that top 8 pick. So you just can't sacrifice it. That's just the reality of the Jazz situation. All right, Gordy, our 1 o'clock NFL Insider is canceled on us, so we're going to need your pick, your insight on Super Bowl 60. Seahawks, Patriots, where are we going here?
Oh, upset Patriots.
Oh, really?
Oh, upset. Yeah, very much.
That's just your Northeastern guy, though, right?
Yeah, upsets. Hey, the Patriots, they're a proud team.
I guess
That's
you kind
exactly
of have
right.
you have a unique one here where you've got some time at both markets, huh?
That's right. I lived in Seattle. That's exactly right. James Peterson is alerted Porter Larsen that I used to live in Seattle, right near the Space Needle, right near it.
It's a good spot.
It's very much, yeah. No, all kidding aside, I like an upset because I like to go against people that want to keep seeing the Seahawks. Should be a great game, though.
Well, we shall see. Of course, Super Bowl 60 comes your way on Sunday. That is one Gordy Chiesa at G Chiesa Oh My, and one of our favorites on the station here. Gordy, always good to see you.
Thanks, Porter. Peace out.
Peace out, my dog. Gordy Chiesa next on The Drive. The final hour, on the Sean O'Connell Show. The final hour of the show, The Drive, comes your way next, and we'll preview Super Bowl 60. We'll recap the NBA trade deadline, and hey, we'll talk a little Olympics. Day 1 today on the Winter Olympics side, right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Valley Plumbing brings you the daily dump on the Sean O'Connell Show. All the top stories of the news day. We'll go through a bunch of them as the segment goes along. We'll start on the Olympic side. How about it? Team USA women's hockey 5-1 over the Czech in the Olympic debut. Finland's women's hockey Olympic opener postponed due to a norovirus outbreak. So only 8 skaters and 2 goalies were able to practice for Finland's team. The other 13 were in quarantine. And here's the thing there. The Finland team might be one of the competitors with Team USA and others for a medal in women's hockey. So both of those stories kind of tied together there with the women's hockey starting this morning. The schedule for day 1 at the Olympics, again, as we mentioned, women's hockey gets going on that end. We've got curling, Norway and USA.
Yeah,
Great
we
Britain
do.
and
Yeah, we got
Estonia.
curling.
James Peterson, our curling correspondent.
I'm all over it. Maybe next segment, because I'm going to need more time than
That's
just
fair.
a few minutes.
I must say, you may have to contend
really
with our
cover
guy
it.
Ken Pomeroy for curling correspondent.
Hey, maybe he can be the Drives curling correspondent.
He's like a legit curler.
Is he really?
Yeah.
So
He
you-
like travels to events and curls.
Wow, he knows how to use the broom there. So you heard Spence and OC yesterday on Crosstalk joke that we at ESPN 700 should be the Team USA's next curling team in the next Winter Olympics. Maybe we need to recruit Ken Pomeroy.
I mean, that would be beneficial because none of us know how to curl. I think. Listen,
how about he coaches us?
I
How about that?
understand. I understand the thought that it's easy, that anyone could do it, and to be clear, it's probably one that you could adopt a little easier than some other sports. But I think it's a little disrespectful to the curlers of the world to think we could just hop in there. Now,
Absolutely is. As the curling expert of the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700, I will stand up for the curlers and say no. I cannot do that sport. I cannot play that sport.
I will say there's a 54-year-old American that is competing in curling, and he is a late addition to the sport, right?
Olympic athlete.
You could, if you're going to pick a sport that you could maybe compete in, you could maybe start a late career in, curling might be the one. For me, every time I get on ice, doesn't go too well.
Yeah, you're not a big ice skater.
No. So I might have to bow out of that one.
Is it like you fall a lot when you try to ice skate, or is it like, because ice skates, it hurts your ankles?
A little bit of both.
Kind of both. Okay.
I
that's
grew
a
up.
deterrent.
I mean, I grew up doing the snow sports thing. My mom was now that we're on the Olympics, I'll name drop the mama. She was a captain on the U.S. snowboard team in the 90s.
Shout out.
My late uncle was on the U.S. ski team for a short time. Never Olympic qualifiers. The timing never worked, and women's snowboarding hadn't gained the respect of the Olympic Committee in the 90s.
Still on the national teams.
But so I grew up on the snow sports thing, but I think I got we overdid it, right? Like I was expected.
You got burnt out?
I was expected to be on the slopes, be on the ice, do the things, and I was like, guys, it's enough. I'm going to go play some basketball. It's just how it kind of.
You were talking with Cade Matson earlier
Yeah.
in the show. You did you tried your hand in a little rodeo too.
Well,
growing up where you grew up.
So I had a horse, Homer. Shout out Homer. A little Homer talk on the radio today, and I really wanted to team rope. And I had a buddy who his cousin wasn't in high school yet, so he didn't have his team roping partner. And I was going to try it my freshman year, and then old Homer. Well, his time came.
Oh no!
So
he went Homer.
I did like some roping in practice settings, and I still like to toss a rope every once in a while, but never was good at it, and never competed in that form.
When you did, you also told me you've ridden like the miniature bulls, or what do you call it?
I've done a bunch of mutton busting. I got on some lambs. I got on a mini bull. Again, shout out to France's Frontier Days. I got on a mini bull once upon a time.
How much do the mini bulls buck?
Oh, they buck.
Is it like the full size ones?
I mean, not quite. Those animal athletes, if you will, are like $1 million investments, not only in their nutrition and their upbringing, but also their bloodlines and all of the above.
It sounds a lot, and it makes a lot of sense that it would be this way, but it sounds a lot like horse racing, where you're very selective with your breeding.
Oh, yes. The stock contractors in rodeo are very particular about their bloodlines. If you look at bulls that qualify for the PBR, qualify for the NFR, there is a high likelihood that their fathers also did.
That makes sense.
So yeah, there's a heavy aspect to the sport in that regard.
Mechanical bull? How many mechanical bulls?
Plenty of mechanical bulls.
I've never ridden a mechanical bull.
I've never done the intentional bucking horse. I have only gotten on.
You were telling this story to Cade.
I've only gotten on horses that maybe were a little green on the riding side and weren't entirely used to people on their back. And the plan wasn't for them to buck much, but sometimes it happens. Ended up in the hospital a time or two. That's just the way it may go.
Yeah, so you're a well-rounded athlete is what we're learning today on the Sean O'Connell Show.
I would say I've done a lot of sports not very well. In fact, I'm sitting in the Sean O'Connell Show. Another shout-out to our guys down in St. George at Fusion MMA. I spent a couple of years doing some fighting stuff. I had a couple amateur fights, and that was very fun.
Was that when you were in college?
You can see the broken nose here. Yeah, when I was down in St. George.
So were you doing?
You saw when I was in St. George. I put on what you would call the freshman 50.
Yeah.
I had to find a way out of that, and I joined. Shout out to Aaron Reese down at Fusion MMA in St. George. Hopped onto their team and spent a couple of years just getting the MMA stuff under my belt, and really more of a like confidence thing where you don't feel like you're threatened by other men or like other.
Yeah,
it's very much a skill that if I have kids, if I have daughters, they're gonna be trained in some form of self-defense, some form of MMA, just because it's a good skill to have, a good trait to have. And, I very much enjoyed doing that. But, man, if you're not going to go all in, it's just a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, and it's
and it hurts.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
I imagine if you're not fully committed, it's not very worthwhile because of all that stuff.
So, yeah, I guess I'm a well-rounded athlete, James. If you consider well-rounded, doing a lot of sports at a average level. I
tried a lot of things.
I was on a practice squad for a college basketball team for a quick moment. I played a game for the Zion Lions in St. George.
Did you?
The football?
The semi-pro team?
Let's put a quote around semi-pro.
They played there at the Sun Bowl, right?
Yep, some MMA stuff.
We always I don't. That's like the 5th time in the last 3 weeks I've brought up the Sun Bowl on this show.
There we go.
It just always comes back to the Sun Bowl.
I've played a football game at the Sun Bowl down there.
Yeah.
I was always very bad at golf, but I've played around with a Masters champion, my former boss Mark O'Meara.
Oh yeah.
So we got sports, experience all around. I just have never been like great at any of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here talking about them instead.
Well, and you're what all-state 2A football player too, if I'm not mistaken, or all
basketball?
Region? Basketball. Okay.
We had some all tournament stuff there. My football team. I'll put this out there. I was a good receiver. Like I was a really good wide receiver. You can throw stuff and I'll catch it. I can promise you.
I mean, you're very tall.
We ran triple option.
You didn't throw to you.
I did a lot of blocking. And then 2 or 3 times a game, we just said, "Hey, go catch this long bomb," and I'd make it happen.
There you go.
So that was kind of the MO with the football team.
That concludes Porter Larsen Sports Resume Hour on the Sean O'Connell Show.
Your daily dump.
Yeah, the daily dump.
I don't think I'll be doing any curling anytime soon. I don't know that I'm going to be a winter Olympic addition to your guys' little scheme. But that being said, we'll cover it as it goes along. As I mentioned, curling, hockey underway. We've got the opening ceremonies tomorrow and a bunch still to go on the daily dump.
It's a little strange. We'll put a bow on this after this, but it's a little strange, and we see this in Summer Olympics too, that we have events before the opening ceremonies.
Yeah.
Why not just
some of them are qualifiers, but
yeah, why not just? My thought is it just impossible? Is it really not feasible just to move the start of the Olympics a couple days earlier, make the opening ceremonies yesterday instead of Friday? But
you would think.
I don't know. I don't know what all goes into that.
What else we got here in the daily dump? Oh, NCAA has denied the appeal for Trinidad Chambliss. He will not get his 6th year of eligibility. I think the right call on the side of the NCAA, even though the problem I have with it is that now it's so arbitrary. You don't know who's going to get what, when, and where. I think we're at a place where even though the NCAA, NC2A, shout out Kyle Whittingham, rest in peace. Even though the NC2A,
who shall not be named, or former Utah football coach on the Sean O'Connell show.
The NC2A, I think, is at a place, even though they have no teeth for enforcement, they have to put their foot down in some form or fashion on the eligibility. They're not going to get anywhere really with the NIL stuff. That's out of the bag. But the eligibility thing, and it's less for me about the age. There have been 28 and 29-year-old college football players. I remember Nate Boyer was a long snapper for Texas when he was like 30. Ended up playing for the Seahawks for a year. The age thing is not the issue for me as much as the eligibility. When you have played a full 4 years, you should be done. You should get 5 to play 4. That's the NCAA eligibility. You shouldn't get 6 to play 7, 7 to play 6. The COVID year, okay, we'll give them 1. But outside of that, man, I think the NCAA really does have to just say, hey, line in the sand here. You can't really do much about age because, hey, some guys get to college late. Some guys don't have that opportunity till they're 2021. So for me, if you're 26 years old and you're still technically and actually a senior in college, then yeah, okay, I'm okay with you playing some football. But if you're 27 years old and you have played 7-8 years of college football without injury, red shirts or hardship waivers, all of the above, we got to call it. And if you've played professionally, if you opted to not take advantage of the college route and you have gone and made millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars playing professionally, either overseas or in the G League or in some form or fashion, man, I think your clock runs out. I really do. I think your clock runs out. That's how it's always been. That's how it should be. And if you're an amateur, if you're playing collegiate athletes, you should not have been in the past a professional athlete. Now, where that gets into tricky waters is if you're maybe playing different sports, right? Where maybe you're a professional skier like Andy Phillips. He could still play college football. I don't see an issue with that. The Jeremy Brooks thing.
Well, Danny Ainge, way back in the day, he played a couple years for the Toronto Blue Jays and in their minor league system, and then went back to school and played college basketball. He
didn't burn his eligibility though, which is my main issue.
He still had eligibility, and it was a different sport, so he was allowed to play. I actually a few years ago at Jazz Media Day, Danny was just sitting around hanging out as we were waiting for players and coaches to come through, and he was talking about, someone asked him about his baseball career, and I took the opportunity to be like, so wait, what did the NCAA say about you already being a professional in a different sport when you went, because you played at BYU after you played in Major League Baseball? And he said, yeah, different sports, so it was fine. So that was enlightening for me, because I had thought at that time, if you're a pro, you're a pro. It didn't matter what sport, but apparently the sport matters. And the Andy Phillips is a recent one that's a relevant one too, because he had already competitive skier before he kicked for Utah, right? So something to remember as we complain. There's plenty of reason to complain about the state of college athletics, but when you see something like that, that's always been kosher with the NCAA ranks. Going back to Trinidad Chambliss, though,
He's played 4 years.
He played 4
And
years.
He's an NFL prospect.
Yeah, he played 3 or 4 years. Was it 4 years at Ferris State?
Yeah.
NCAA Division II, Ferris State, by the way. And people want to say all these players and people who are arguing for on behalf of these players, they always want to point to Diego Pavia getting one of his junior college years nullified. Junior college is not NCAA.
Right. It's a different
division. NCAA Division II. Did you hear NCAA there? So that's why I'm like, as much as I'm like, Division II is not Division I. Much as you want to be like, he should get one of those years taken away because it's not Division I. It's still NCAA, so I don't feel bad for him not getting another year. Sorry about that.
So yeah, he's not going to get his 6 year of eligibility, and as we talked about, it's not like a Matt Asiata 6 year where you had a ACL gone, you came back and played one game and had another big injury, and you literally lost 2 years. Physically lost 2 years. No, he's played a full 4.5, 5 years of college football. At that point, especially when you're a guy who has the potential to be a professional. We just gotta call it as we see it, and he's gonna have to go. And I think, not to belabor the point on Trinidad, it's got to be that case for other players who are asking for similar things.
Joey Aguilar is just recently got in the news. He played 2 years of junior college ball. He already got one of those years kind of nullified, I guess.
The UCLA basketball player that has played professionally already.
Yeah. Basketball is going even crazier with these guys with pro contracts. So, yeah, the other thing about Chambliss, just to close it up here, he's a guy who's good enough to be drafted.
Yeah.
Like, just get drafted, he will be drafted. He's not very tall, and that always counts against you in the draft, in the NFL draft. But, like, put on the tape, scouts and general managers are going to be like, yeah, we'll take a flyer on this guy, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round. So just go start your NFL career.
You got to our curling updates. Do you know what happened this morning?
I do. You want to do that next segment with our leaderboard update?
Let's do that. We'll catch a break on the other side, a little bit more Olympic chat. We'll get to the trade deadline. Now that things are official, sometimes you leave a little room, 15 minutes or so, to see if any trades were entered before the deadline, and then the league has got to approve them and go through all the dots of the I's and cross of the T's afterwards. Doesn't look like any of those went down. It does look like the Zubats trade is going to be the final one across the finish line, but we'll give you that at the end of the break.
There's also an interesting name who's being waived, and it's going to enter free agency too. So we can update you on that.
Is that
too.
a tease?
Yeah.
And we'll give you a PGA Tour leaderboard update. Of course, crosstalk with Spence around the corner and more. It is the Sean O'Connell Show. No Sean O'Connell. I am Porter Larsen. James Peterson back there behind the glass on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700. 92.1 FM, a proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. No OC today. I am Porter Larsen, filling in for that fighting man. He's wheels up to Dubai, another PFL event in Dubai. The last one was super fun. Tune in Saturday night for that one. You can also watch some Olympics. You may have to wake up a little early for that one. The Winter Olympics and the Winter Olympics schedule, of course, with it being out in Italy, going to be a little bit different on the schedule for you guys. Some Olympic times got going at 4:00 a.m. this morning with some curling, the mixed doubles. Team USA went to bat at 8:30 with Switzerland. Pulling up the final score sheet for that one. Of course, you can find the Olympics action.
Covered.
We can find the Olympics action on the USA Network, and our curling correspondent, James Peterson, has the recap of Team USA and Switzerland. How do we do this morning?
So Team USA, actually, the mixed doubles, they had 2 matches today, which I didn't know. I didn't know that you had that kind. These athletes had that kind of stamina to play twice in one day. Just an update here. They do these at the Cortina Olympic Curling Stadium in Cortina d'Ampezzo,
again,
in Italy.
This is a home advantage for the defending champions, by the way. Reigning gold medalists are Italy.
They are. The Italians are the reigning gold medalists. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's the round robin. It's a round robin tournament. Started yesterday. It was the first Winter Olympics events. It continued today, day 2. Team USA's debut, they won 8-6 over Norway to start the day. 2 a.m. here is when that started. And then the aforementioned match against Switzerland, 7-4 in favor of Team USA. Let's go, 2-0 start. We love to see it. Great Britain over Estonia, our great allies across the pond there, over Estonia, 10-5. Sweden over Czechia, 7-4, formerly Czech Republic, formerly Czechoslovakia, now Czechia, apparently. Italy, the defending gold medalists and home team in Cortina over Korea, 8-4. And Canada, our neighbors to the north, America's hat, over Norway, 6-3. So, standings so far, Norway, 0-3. So, condolences to the Norwegians out there. Tough start. Team USA 2-0, Canada 2-0. Coming up tomorrow morning is the next Team USA match, 2 a.m. And I take my curling correspondent assignment very seriously, I'm watching all of these live.
I got to be honest with you. Okay. 2 a.m. start time might be an issue for me.
Not for me.
I stayed up till 1:30 to watch the Australian Open final.
Oh, did you?
And couldn't. I woke up periodically through it. I did see the end, but I fell asleep during Alcaraz and Djokovic match 3 or 4 times and missed a good portion of it.
That's one of those where you fall asleep and you think, oh, I woke up, I know what's going on, and then when you remember back to that, I missed all of that. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was in a complete delirious daze. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how much of the match I watched, but I did see the beginning. I did see the end.
Thank goodness for the scoreboard on the screen. You knew who won.
I saw Carlos become the youngest player in tennis history on the men's side to complete the career Grand Slam.
So that was feat, by the way. That's not been talked about enough. He's 22, and he's won each of the tournaments already.
And listen, I know tennis isn't exactly the top ESPN and sports radio topic, but it's one of my favorite sports to not only play but to follow and to watch. It's just a remarkable individual mano versus mano. How good of an athlete are you? Hand-eye coordination / explosiveness,
stamina.
It really is a genuine test of some physical prowess, and I quite enjoy my tennis stuff. So I'll at least bring it up during the course of a show when I'm hosting. But how about Super Bowl? Super Bowl 60, Patriots, Seahawks. We asked texters earlier, got a few responses, asked folks on the Twitter line, what is the first Super Bowl that you actually remember? You remember sitting down for, you remember the game, maybe some details to the game. Not like me, who I thought I remembered some of the Cowboys like at the end, but looking back now, I only remember my dad like watching it back on VHS and DVD because he,
Taped them all.
And
Yeah.
when your Cowboys get knocked out of the playoffs 8 years in a row, you revisit old times. I do not believe when I was 2 years old I remember the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl.
You don't.
I just don't think that is a memory that is actually in my brain. I think I have convinced myself that it is. I think that the first one that I remember sitting down for live, my family's around, the wings are up, the festivities are going. I remember some commercials. I do believe it was 2000, the Titans and the Rams, in which, of course, they came up 1 yard short. Not only was it a super memorable, just being my first one, but to end like that.
Yeah.
Right. To have a finish like that in a football game where it's all on the table, that's pretty memorable. That one might stick out. So I do believe that one is the first, because I know for a fact I remember Ray Lewis and that Ravens defense winning the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. That, and also another reason why that's memorable for people, that Rams-Titans game is memorable for people around here, is the Ute connection. Kevin Dyson was the one who unfortunately came up 1 yard short.
Of course.
Getting tackled. Was it Mike Jones?
Mike Jones!
Not the rapper Mike Jones.
Oh.
The Rams, I believe, safety who made, or linebacker, I'm not sure, who made the game-saving tackle there. Super Bowl saving tackle. Yeah, that one for sure. Also Clearfield High, Kevin Dyson.
Yep.
Now Dr. Kevin Dyson in Nashville, by the way. I believe he's a principal.
Yes.
Out there.
Correct.
Certainly an educator. So, and our audience has definitely heard him on the Bill Riley show in recent years, and Bill has asked him, what do you think? How do you feel about that game now? And he incredibly is like, I love that I was a part of it. That is a painful moment. That was a painful moment for me, but I love that I was in that moment still, with the chance to win a Super Bowl and play in that game. So that's pretty cool to hear. But yeah, that's one that I would say I remember bits and pieces of. Certainly that final play I remember live. The first one that I remember watching basically the entire game of was the next Rams Super Bowl. Greatest show on turf, Rams Super Bowl, led by Kurt Warner, and their loss to the Patriots in Super Bowl 36, February 2002. And the start of the Patriots dynasty, as I put it on Twitter, snarkily, the second ballot Hall of Fame dynasty.
Yep.
The Patriots started with that one. That's the one I remember watching the full game. I weirdly, even though I remember parts of the one 2 years ago, the one you're talking about, the Rams-Titans, Super Bowl 34, and I remember the full game of the one 2 years later, I have no recollection of the Ravens win over the Giants. I had to now many years ago I had to learn that the Giants were in a Super Bowl recently. And this was, of course, before their 2 Super Bowl wins with Eli Manning. This probably like, I guess, 05, 06, I learned, the Giants were in a Super Bowl recently? I had no idea. Oh, they got destroyed by the Ravens. So I don't know why I had no recollection of that one, but I do remember the one before and the one after.
Yeah, maybe the best defense that we've ever seen in the NFL, to be honest with you. If you guys want to go back and look at that roster, quite the collection of talent. Now, some texters, their first Super Bowls that they remember. Texter 0319, 1978, living in Wyoming with Dallas fans everywhere, working in the oil fields. He said that was a nightmare. But hey, 1978, a pretty good year with all those Cowboys fans out there. Bruce Hyde.
Yes, that was Cowboys over the Broncos.
Yes.
1978.
Yes. Bruce Hyde says that his first Super Bowl was number 4, Chiefs versus the Vikings. He was 10 years old and was a Chiefs fan back then in the day. Said he became a Vikings fan. Still am to this day. Watched it alone, and they got their butts whooped.
And unfortunately for people like Bruce, who became Vikings fans or who were Vikings fans in that era when they were really, really good. Would they go to 4 straight Super Bowls, but they lost all of them? Or was it 3 straight? Lost
3.
all of them. Purple People Eaters, I think, was that line, that defensive line. Merlin Olsen, if I'm not mistaken, was part of that team. Unfortunately, they haven't been to the Super Bowl since. So that's tough for guys. I'm sure that's tough for guys like Bruce Hyde. But at least he's a guy who remembers those glory days of the Vikings, because there haven't been a ton of those since then. But that's what's interesting about that is it's been so long since the Vikings have been to the Super Bowl. That's way back at the beginning too. That's shout out to Bruce for being able to say, I remember the early days.
Almost
of the Super
all
Bowl.
of them.
Yeah,
almost all of them. Our guy Brady Bigler about to hit the half-century mark, he says. So happy early 50th birthday, Sir Brady. Remembers Washington in Dolphins. So Dan Marino, John Riggins days, way back then. Appreciate the text in.
Only Super Bowl of Dan Marino's career, and it was his second season, if I'm not mistaken. Scott Mitchell always liked to tell the story of Dan when he was Dan's backup. Dan telling him, "I thought we were gonna go to the Super Bowl every year."
Right.
I was spoiled.
No, they got one early with Dan Marino on that rookie contract. Now, in today's game, it's a little more important to try to win a Super Bowl on your franchise quarterback's rookie contract, just with how they scale, how tough it is once you get into paying premier quarterbacks a different value. Because, man, nowadays, if you can draft a guy that you like, and even if he's a first rounder, you can get to a Super Bowl. You can do that on a huge discount based on where it would have to be once you get into that second contract. Because quarterbacks, as we know, they make a bunch of money on those second contracts. So interesting. Our guy Paul remembers Super Bowl 22, I believe it was, Washington and Denver, when Washington got the 42-10 win. Andrew T. Larsen, no relation. Well, I don't think there's a relation. Super Bowl 20, the Bears and the Patriots. He remembers watching it with his grandpa and grandma on their 25-inch television. Of course, that was the Ditka and the Bears. Bears.
Famous 85 Bears. Jim McMahon,
yep.
BYU great, the quarterback of that team. So, yeah. Tony Parks tweeted in too. Did you see he did a GIF in the quote tweet?
There we go.
Montana to John Taylor, I believe it was, the game-winning touchdown against the Bengals. 20-16 thrilling win. I think I looked it up because he didn't give us the number. That was Super Bowl. Now I lost it. Anyway,
all good.
It was 23. It might have been 23. Super Bowl 23, maybe.
Our guy Taylor Cram on the text line. The first Super Bowl he remembers was Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson halftime show. Why do you remember the Janet Jackson halftime show, Taylor?
Yeah, why would you remember the halftime show?
Why don't you expand on that, Taylor?
You don't remember Jake Delhomme's otherworldly performance for the Panthers as he almost beat Tom Brady?
Why is the halftime show what your
There's a wardrobe malfunction.
Why is that coming up in your memory bank? 85 Bears from our texter 7153. His stepdad was from Chicago, so a big deal in their family. Of course, Jim McMahon, the headband, Walter Payton, the Super Bowl Shuffle, of course, a musical masterpiece. So a bunch of our guys texting in the first Super Bowls they remember. We'll have to ask Spence about that and get his read and
Porter, you
continue on.
To your point about feeling like you remember those things, but
right.
You were either a baby or not born.
Or I saw it in its full entirety, but not when it actually happened, stuff like that.
I feel like all of us as NFL fans across the nation have that same thing with the 85 Bears because that team is talked about and there's the highlight. There's documentary after documentary. Also here we got the local connection with Jim McMahon. So there's that's talked about. We see the highlights all the time, and the Super Bowl shuffles talked about all the time. That's when it's like, oh yeah, I remember watching that. Except for me personally, that was 7 years before I was born.
I have that a little bit with
6 years before I was
Jordan.
Yeah.
Where there are so many videos, highlights, montages of Michael Jordan. And to be completely honest with you, watching it live, the vast majority of my Michael Jordan memories were with the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the Jordan that I actually got to see, unfortunately.
He was
I
still
was
really
2 years
good.
old when he was in Salt Lake.
He was still really good, by the way, with the Wizards. Just the Wizards never made the playoffs. Like
Right.
that, he gets dunked on too much for how he played against the Wizards. He wasn't near as athletic, and that was pretty obvious.
But also, the Wizards didn't do him any help.
Yeah, well, he was the GM.
Nor have they since.
He was player GM, which people don't remember, so he didn't do himself much help. Kwame Brown.
The other thing that clouds people's judgment there is that, there's this guy, LeBron James, who is now 41 years old, and he's playing at a level that prior to not really any even like 37, 38, 39-year-old players have played to.
No, like
He's kind of blurring those lines of what's you're able to do as a basketball player. Now, we've seen football. We've seen Tom Brady win a Super Bowl at 40 whatever. We've seen I think Warren Moon played until he was 40 years old or so.
Aaron Rodgers was still playing at a high level about 40 years old before his Achilles tear with the Jets. So, yeah.
You can do it a little bit on the football side in certain positions, but in the NBA, man, once you're 35 years old, that decline happens quickly. It really does, unless your name is LeBron James. It's kind of the real truth of it. One more texter in, Tyson Howard. 1984 Dolphins versus Niners. He became a Dolphins fan at age 6 with their first Super Bowl, or with his first Super Bowl. What a horrible mistake, he says. But always remember the Dan Marino. Only man to beat the 1985 Bears. That's true. That's true. All right, back on the other side, we'll wrap up this edition of the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll hand it over to Spence Checketts and The Drive. I'll stick around behind the glass for that one. We'll give you one more PGA Tour leaderboard update, and then we'll go from there on a Thursday edition of the OC Show. I am Porter Larsen, James Peterson back there on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back in to the Sean O'Connell Show. Sans Sean O'Connell. OC's wheels up to Dubai for the Pro Fighters League. He'll have the call on that one. Tune into ESPN to see our guy OC. Of course, on a Super Bowl Sunday, it might be a tall task to ask you to go to PBR, PFL, all of the above, watch some Olympics, and of course, tune in to the Super Bowl. But we'll get it done. How about a PGA Tour leaderboard update for you? Round 1 in progress at TPC Scottsdale. It is the Waste Management Open. They are mostly through the entirety of round 1. 8 under. Chris Gotterup is your leader. He shot a 63 in the first round. Matt Fitzpatrick, 6 under, alone in second place with a 65. Hogard, 5 under. And he's tied with Max Thorbjornsen and Pearson Cootie for third place. A bunch of guys at 4 under at the Waste Management Open. Of course, Spence's favorite golf event of the year. And brought to you by our friends at Uinta Golf. Uinta Golf and Uinta Golf shops, worldwidegolf.com to find all of your locations. They've got all the latest ping, TaylorMade, Titleist. They've got custom fittings, and you can go in and get your clubs fit to you. They can re-grip your clubs, all of the above. Maybe you're headed down to Phoenix for a little Waste Management Open. Stop on your way before you play any rounds down there in the desert, and get your golf experience teed up with our friends at Uinta Golf. How about the Black Crows? 2 tickets to the Black Crows. They are coming to Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August 13th. I'm going to make, just because I'm a bird nerd, I'm going to make this one hard. What family of bird are crows in? You can win 2 tickets to see the Black Crows. I know Spence knows, but I'm not going to let him win these tickets to a band that apparently you actually listen to. Black Crows?
I actually do like the Black Crows. It is maybe the first band that we've been in the history of the giveaways.
Besides Pitbull.
Well, I mean, look, it goes without saying. But real quick, I don't know what the topic was that you guys were bantering back and forth about, but I knew that you guys were hosting the show today. So I knew at some point you were going to take an opportunity to give LeBron a little love. And I heard that coming in. Topically, what were you guys discussing?
Well, we were actually talking about what we remember Super Bowls. Like, you physically sit down and remember watching. And my first one was Tennessee Titans, 1 yard short against the Rams. I think that was the first time I actually remember watching.
Okay.
And then I was mentioning that I kind of had that same thing with Michael Jordan, where I feel like I've seen so many Michael Jordan games.
Yeah.
But I've really just gone and watched him back so many times. I've watched so many highlights. I've watched so much. I only really watched live maybe a year of Bulls Jordan.
What year were you born?
94.
Oh, yeah. So you were a toddler during his best years.
Jordan was a wizard for me.
The Music City Miracle, the first Super Bowl.
And yeah, the reason I brought that up is because Jordan was kind of like a mystique to me, whereas LeBron is kind of, and Jordan was 38, 39.
Yeah.
And now LeBron is just blurring the lines on all of that, where you've now seen 20-plus years of the same guy.
Yeah, and probably could give you another 3 or 4 of 20
in Cleveland.
And 4. Sure. I mean, if he wants to keep playing. First Super Bowl, you actually have the memory. I think for me, it's 85. I think it's the Bears. Yeah.
Because a lot of texters have said the same.
Well, they were so culturally relevant in a way, the Super Bowl had just started to become something that was viewed, it's always been highly rated, but TV ad execs started to lean into what the Super Bowl meant to them, and they were so marketable. And it was the Super Bowl Shuffle, Jim McMahon, obviously the fridge.
The Bears.
Right, like the famous Mike Ditka giving the ball to the fridge and, instead of sweetness, and everybody getting upset about that. And then, obviously, Jim McMahon is kind of an interesting case study because BYU fans are like, yeah, he's ours. but he also golfed naked while drinking 6-packs up Provo Canyon. So, like, the Jim McMahon BYU fan relationship has always been somewhat funny to me.
Speaking of BYU fan relationships, I saw you tweet about it. We'll go there.
Yeah, we'll get to it. I mean, look, I sent it out in November, the last time the F the Mormons chant happened. And look, like, I'm not a big fan of whataboutisms because currently our political leaders only exist in that rhetoric to distract you from, like, how crazy things absolutely are. But, like, the fact of the matter is it's applicable here because if it was any other religion, it would be the front page of every – well, I know people don't read newspapers anymore, but it would be the lead story on the nightly news. Every single major news outlet would be covering it. Like, can you imagine if the Oklahoma – and by the way, would you stop saying that you claimed that you were chanting the ref is Mormon?
We got to find out if he was.
Well, I mean, he may have been, but that's like, I'm quite sure you can ascertain the F word between refs. Right. They don't really even sound the same. But if the student section at Oklahoma State last night chanted F the Jews, it would be the only thing everybody is talking about today, and some of those kids would be in serious trouble.
Right.
As it is, by my count, this is the 12th time on the basketball and football side combined, a student section has decided to chant F the Mormons. And the fact of the matter is, until Brett Yormark and the Big 12 decide that's it, and by deciding that's it, you go back, everything's on camera these days. You go back and you identify, 5 to 10 students that are on camera doing this and say, you are not allowed at any Big 12 event ever again for the rest of your life. Fans get banned from arenas for saying racist things. Fans get banned from arenas for life for saying inappropriate things to people about their race, about their religion, about a lot of different things. And the fact that this continues to just be allowed to happen honestly blows my mind. And I don't have an axe to grind here. I'm not actively involved in LDS culture. I was raised in it. I have family and friends who I love and care about who believe in it, and therefore I will stand up for my people. But I'm not sitting here offended because I'm a member of the church. I'm sitting here because I'm offended at the two-tiered application of punishment as it pertains to which religion that people are allowed to crack on. It just happens way too much.
And as you mentioned, it continues to happen. You allow it to happen is the one thing. And like you, I'm not an active member of the LDS Church, but like you, very much connected. My name is Porter for a reason.
Right.
My direct ancestors were what you call Danites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And listen, there's a dark and complicated history between all of that, but it's not 1847 anymore, right? That's not what we're living in.
Yeah.
These are so my grandfather's grandfather was pushed out of Lee County, Iowa by legislation, by a law that said you cannot live here anymore, right? And I think that law is I think I can't live in Lee County, Iowa, based on the family thing.
Okay.
They're not going to enforce that.
Sure.
But this is, again, not 1847 anymore. Right. So to allow it to continue to happen when we have the knowledge of this, we have now 150 years between actual violence and the actual dark history of it. These are people who, do you even know a Mormon? Do you even know someone who's LDS? Because I, like we said, not active in the church, but I exist with an entire family ecosystem, friends who are, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
If you don't understand the weight of what you're saying, just don't say it.
Yeah.
And again, if it were any other culture, any other religious affiliation or race or whatever it may be, there would be news articles all over. It wouldn't just be radio guys in Utah talking about it. It would be on front page news, and there'd be an uproar.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here? Why is there not an edict from the Big 12, from somebody who's not us or BYU, saying, hey, it's completely unacceptable? Oh, and by the way, there's been 3 shootings at LDS church houses in the last year or so.
Right.
Got to get a handle on it, and I think it reflects poorly on the Big 12 for sure, but now we're allowing it to reflect poorly on a bunch of institutions because of a bunch of dumb 18-year-olds. Teach them.
And I understand that it is that, okay? I understand, the chants don't represent the entirety of Oklahoma State, nor did they Arizona, nor did they Providence, and I could keep going. I mean, okay, I get it, but what we're going to get is some half-ass PR written statement like, hey, a group of students does not represent us. We apologize to the LDS people. And then guess what's going to happen? Nothing. And then we'll move on to whatever's next in this crazy news cycle. And then in 2 months, BYU is going to be at, I don't know, Kansas State or something. And it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
And then the AD and the president are going to have their PR guru or whatever type up some stupid apology. This won't stop until there are repercussions for behavior. That's how life works. And so until the Big 12 and Brett Yormark decide to actually do something, it's going to be wash, rinse, repeat. It's just like every time we have a mass shooting. It's like, hey, thoughts and prayers. Stick your thoughts and prayers where the sun doesn't shine and absolutely do something about the problem because kids are being shot.
Yeah.
Oh, our prayers are with the families. Great. That means nothing. Until we do something about this stuff, the cycle is just going to continue. And I'm I'm over the entire thing. And I feel bad for, look, BYU fans travel as well as any fan base in the country.
Right.
And last night I'm watching the game, they're 20, 30% of the audience dressed in blue there to cheer for BYU. If you want to chant something about BYU, that's fine. That's in bounds.
Say F BYU, whatever.
That's in bounds in where we're at with fandom. If you want to attack an entire culture of people, the majority of whom are family-orientated, trying to give back to the community, trying to do the best they can just to be good, that's where the line has to be drawn. I'm so sick of blurred lines in our country, and it is as a result of hate speech from essentially anywhere, including the highest office of the land. I'm just sick of the lines that are blurred. Just be decent to other people.
And like you said, as long as it just is allowed to continue to happen, it will.
Right.
So
exactly.
It's on the adults in the room, in the arenas to just put the foot down, do something in some form or fashion. So yeah, that's the soapbox today. You'll hear more of it 2 months from now, I'm sure.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What's coming up on the drive today?
Well,
do you want me to do that?
You produce the show. You book the show. You tell me what's coming up.
We
on
got
the drive.
Omar Ruiz
Nice.
talking some NFL, previewing the Super Bowl, and then it's all NBA trade deadline reaction and more. Richard Smitty Smith will be in studio. Howard Beck, of course, a really good NBA guest, and we'll go from there. That comes your way next on the drive with Spence Checketts. James Peterson produced this thing. I'm going to hop behind the glass, and we'll be here until 6 p.m. right here on Utah's #1 sports talk. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, a proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.